October 27th, 2022. This meeting is held as a hybrid so that the public can attend online. Commissioners are all here. We have Todd, Angela, Kathy, myself, Charles, and Lee Shea. And from staff, we have Phil, Ron, Piper. I think we're going to have Jonna later.
Yeah, she'll.
And we'll have Kevin later. And for our town council liaison, we have Dan Enright. So our first item is approval of the minutes of September 22nd, 2022. Thank you, Kathy.
I move to approve the September 22nd of 2022 minutes as presented for the Telluride Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting.
Todd seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? That's
Aye.
unanimous.
So I just want to make a brief comment on that. The minutes said Ron was in attendance when he was not.
Oh,
We just gotta
okay.
take-
Okay, well,
that one.
We just gotta take that.
Sorry.
okay.
That's an easy fix.
I'll move to amend the minutes to say that Ron was not in attendance.
Perfect.
Do you accept that?
Todd seconds. Yes.
Seconds.
All right. And does everybody accept that amendment?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
We're all clear.
In spirit.
Clear them now. Well, with Zoom, it's hard. Are there any staff announcements?
No, well, I do have one announcement. We did get an approval from the town council to move forward with a request for grant funding to study how the mitigation rate could be modified to accommodate remodels and substantial upgrades to buildings. Right now, we don't have anything that addresses those types of construction, only new construction and addition. So hopefully we'll get that grant and we can send out an RFP and get a consultant working on that.
Great. Keep us up to date. Does anyone have any
Wonderful
questions
news.
about that? Thank you, Ron. Any other staff announcements? No. All right. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Any public?
There is public. I don't see any hands raised. but you can have the public to raise their hand.
Remember, you have to raise your hand if you are a member of the public and you want to comment. Use the raise your hand function on your Zoom.
See them.
Okay, seeing none, we will start with our work session. So our first item is the review of the Town of Telluride Community Vision Plan draft document. Ron, would you like to start this item?
Yeah, I think we have Jessica and Allison in attendance and they're ready to go and talk about where we are in this process. First draft has been completed and we've received several comments. So turn it over to Jessica.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, as Ron said, Allison and I are here to provide an overview. We have a brief presentation just providing an overview of the draft community vision and action plan. And then we wanted to spend some time in conversation with you, get some feedback, answer any questions that you might have. And we wanted to start with just a acknowledgement of all of the work that the community has put into this plan, that the Planning and Zoning Commission has, and our working group. It's been a lot of work over these last few months, and we think it's something to really celebrate and that the community should be really proud of. We've shown this graphic before. I'm not going to belabor the point, but we've gone through 3 phases of work. We are in phase 3 with that draft action plan and community vision. And it is the result of extensive community engagement with a kickoff meeting, working with a working group, working with you, survey, pop-up events, and then our pretty intense one-day vision retreat. So the document that is before you and that we'll summarize tonight is a culmination of all of that work. So congratulations, and we're excited to be in these final steps with you. I am going to turn it over to Allison, and she's going to walk through, again, just kind of high level overview of the document, and then we'll get into conversation.
She muted herself, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't realize I couldn't unmute. Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all again via Zoom. And as Jessica said, we're just so excited to get to share the final outcomes of so much work and so much of your ideas and see this come to fruition and really to set up for kind of the next phases of moving forward as well. So the document is about 40 pages. It includes kind of an introduction. We did leave a space in the draft for a letter from the town manager, which Phil will work with all of you and with the town manager on for a final. And then, we've set up a little bit of the context and sharing a little bit about the process. Have a few pages dedicated to capturing at a high level the community engagement. With the final plan, there'll also be an appendix with those community engagement summaries that you have received in the past. And that will be a more thorough analysis and summary of that engagement that took place through this process. And then chapter 3 is where the really good stuff happens. That's outlines the future vision, which is really kind of looking to the future. How do we move forward? And just a brief next steps of what to do, what comes next. So the vision framework, I think we've talked about this, but this is maybe the first time you're seeing a graphic like this, where really the vision is the umbrella. It's kind of the base of the inverted triangle, directing you towards the future. And from our vision retreat, one of the things that came out of that was this idea of core values. And that really came from you. That came from the discussion. That came from the community of what matters to Telluride and how do those core values guide us towards the future. Then we move into those principles of livability. These are really key elements of the plan. And as you move into the next stages of a master plan, or a comprehensive plan, those will be kind of guiding points for that process. And then we've outlined some preliminary goals and strategies. And once again, the master plan can start to dive into the how of those a little bit more, but this process has started to identify the what. So we just thought we'd share quickly what your vision is. This was definitely an iterative process. We have shared this with you previously in the vision framework document and gotten your comments and feedback. We have captured some of those comments and feedback here. One of the things that we did since the last time you saw it is we pulled those values into the vision statement right there at the beginning, that a livable Telluride will remain sustainable, authentic, and connected community. Those are really the core values that guide you. And then some minor changes to the other part that talks a little bit about being a mountain town that embraces and sustains the distinctive natural setting. Something that was just so important from the community was that distinctive natural setting. Advances its reputation for innovation. That really came out of the retreat as something that really drives the town of Telluride, both historically and to the future, as well as this cultural heritage, just being so tied to the town itself. And remaining true to its roots as a livable and real community for future generations of citizens, workers, and visitors. One thing I'll add is that we've heard a couple comments about the idea of integrating small into like a small mountain town. And we felt that from the retreat, that was something that I think there was a lot of question of what does that mean? How do we define the word small? And it ultimately, I think that got tied into the values. And so when we enter into discussion, we'd love to hear your feedback if that's something that should be integrated into this, or if that's something that maybe we can address in a different way through other pieces of the framework. So these are those core values. These were really the outcome of that vision retreat where we all sat in a room and really worked through some of these ideas. Who is Telluride? What will guide you into the future? And this idea of that we are sustainable, we are authentic, and we are connected is really what came out of that conversation. And we really capitalized on this as being a core part of who Telluride is, and have integrated kind of this piece of the puzzle into the vision because it is such an important part of your story and it's such a guiding.
Yep, you realize that your slide is off. The connected text is not the right text,
Oh, thank you for that.
but it was right in the document.
Right.
Principles of livability. So these are the 5 pieces of the puzzle that we have identified with you. We worked through those. We really, these came out of the community survey is where it ultimately started. I think at one point we had 6 different ideas. Through the retreat and through discussions, it kind of came into these 5 different ideas. And we worked with you and with the working group and with the community to really refine this through those second rounds of workshopping. And, we're really excited about how these integrate into the future of Telluride and can start to be organizing elements of the master plan. And then within each of these, there's goals and strategies. I didn't put every single strategy on the slide, but I tried to pull in the goals so you can kind of see how these start to break down into more detailed, actionable ways to begin to take action on the different principles of livability. And so next steps, we've gotten some comments from all of you. We thank you so much for your thoughtful feedback. We will be integrating those comments into the document. We have an open house or kind of an open window for community comments until November 8th for the community to review and comment on the plan. We will pick up all of those changes very quickly between the 8th and the 10th. To issue a final plan to Phil to share with all of you a week in advance and ultimately come back to the November 17th meeting, hopefully for recommendation for adoption from council. As I said, there will be opportunity to provide comments and feedback. And so we have captured some of your comments. The same thing will happen with the community, where we'll capture all of the different people who have provided comments, the various different comments, and with the final version, we'll submit a response of how those comments have been addressed within the plan, so that you can kind of track and see how the document that you have in front of you, this 90% advances into the final phase and understand how those comments were addressed within the draft plan document to the final plan document. And with that, we just really want to say thank you. Jessica did a beautiful job, reiterating that this is your plan. This is your community. These are your ideas on paper. And we've just been so excited to be part of this process with you.
Well, thanks very much. I think that we all were really excited to get the plan. We got it 10 days ago or so. And several of us, I'm sure, have spent a lot of time with it. And I think what I would like to do is to go through it, like page by page and get people's comments, because I haven't had a chance to hear other commissioners' comments. And it might be helpful to you as well. We'll try to be fast and not do typos and, things like that. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that sounds great. We're really eager for those comments and happy to go through page by page. Do you need us to show that on the screen as we go through, or
That would be helpful.
That's
guys have hard-
easiest. I think that's easiest.
Yeah, okay, great.
All right. So I'm just going to go say page 1, who has a comment, and we'll just go down the line. Todd.
Lenny, before we start, and I want to say you guys did a fantastic.
Jess, can you hear me? Okay. I can't hear you. We lost you all there for a moment and can you hear us?
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Great. All right. Kathy.
Let's go to the acknowledgement page and I'll just start at my beginning. Over the last few months, I've been thinking a lot about the Utes being the former owners of our land, except I think their name for themselves is something more like Nuche and UCHE. And with the blowback that Biden got for creating a national park with only 2 of the 3 Ute tribes supporting it, I would like to see some acknowledgement to the Utes, maybe first thing on our acknowledgement page. And because the rest of the team, everybody listed there is fairly Anglo. So it's kind of a sad thing that we overlook them and that we're not as diverse as I would like.
Does anybody else have any comments on the first page or the acknowledgements page? I have one, which it should be the Planning and Zoning Commission, not Planning Commission. All right, let's go on. We can go to the next page. All right, we're going to get the letter from the town manager,
I have a comment on that. one.
Angela.
I'm looking at the photo. And while that's an iconic piece of our area, that's actually not town of Telluride land. Is that correct?
Yes,
Ground
that's true.
illustration?
That's true.
So we might want to get something, oh, it's iconic, it's just not town land, so maybe something.
Yeah,
from
we
the-
can
Or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I had a comment about the photos in general, that they're all in the summertime. And we might want a winter photo or 2 somewhere in the mix. That's just general. Anybody else comment on this?
I would just, since we brought up the photos, I felt like there were a whole lot of photos of Town Park. And I almost felt like this was the new park plan and not the vision plan, somewhat, but.
Yeah. Photos do send a message. And so, you know, what we have up front especially is important. All right, we can go on though, I think. Unless anybody has any other comments. So let's go to page 2. I guess it's page 2, the next page.
Probably page 6.
Oh, it's page
6.
the one with the livable Telluride, right? Does anybody have any comments on this page?
I can't
Introduction.
read it from here and I didn't
Oh.
bring my baby computer, but whatever page we have the percentages of
It's later.
different types of population on, there's some problems.
A little later.
Yeah, that's 7.
At 7, okay, I knew it was coming up.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Can we wait?
This
Can we hold
data-
it till we
Yeah.
get to,
Yeah, that's fine.
all right, so
Yep.
let's do the page we're on now, which I have to be, what is this plan about? Introduction, livable Telluride. Does anybody have any comments on this one? All right, I have one comment, which is, I'm not sure that values identify how we make decisions. That sounds kind of process oriented to me. And the values are super, super important, as you just said, but they're like guides to our decision making. They don't, the how, and I just didn't want people to start thinking processing. Okay, now we can go on as far as I'm concerned. Let's go on then to Kathy's point.
It might be on
Is it
the
this one?
next page. But wherever, and I took notes at home and I didn't bring them. I am teaching 8 or 9 hours a day for something like 18 days in a row. So I did not get this document nearly early enough to really, I read it at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm not going to be on my big computer and able to answer that little form. So I don't know where, but there was some breakdown but about Anglos and Latinxes. And the numbers added up to like something like 102%. And there was no mention of even, you know, 0.5% or 1/4% of our Native Americans or our Blacks. Were not lily white and lily Latino. We actually have Asians as well. So I kind of was upset. Again, you can tell I'm on an equity kick. And I know we're pretty white. I'll own that up to that, but I would like to recognize that we do have some diversity and not overlook any part of it.
Oh, also,
Yeah.
Telluride is not in the southwest corner of San Miguel County. It's in the southeast corner. Just, that's one of your first sentences.
Oh,
And
that's-
these numbers, was there any they seem very low to me, just the total population. I realize that's the census, but did we cross-reference with like voting records or something in San Miguel County or some other indication of the population? Because it's really low.
Well,
I think this is census
it's not
data.
the current
It's-
census. It's the previous census.
No.
So all of this data is coming from the census, and we've heard a couple of times from you and from some of the feedback at the open house that it doesn't seem right. And I think we are struggling a little bit to ensure that we're, providing the most accurate data. So if there's a specific data source that you would want us to pull from, we can do that. But otherwise, we are relying on the latest information from the Census Bureau. So that's where these numbers are coming from.
Well, the only thing I can think of right off the top of my head is the voting records. People who vote in San Miguel County, voters in San Miguel County, there's a number. It's not that hard to find. And
I
I
guess-
would presume that those would be
But
residents.
the kids don't count, they count in the
Yeah,
census.
that's a low number for total population, but I bet it's higher than this number that you got from the census.
I mean, I think, the census, you can only be a census person in one place. So we have a lot of second homeowners or people that split time between different locations. And so I think the amount of people in town that are here at any one time is more than, even if you don't count tourists, it's more than 2,000 people, but they're not
Full-time residents.
the full-time 12-month-a-year residences, I think. So it is kind of misleading. I think the annual growth is kind of, that's true too, but that's misleading because we can't grow.
Kathy?
Well, I think there's something wrong in that our school is approximately 20% Latinx and 80% Anglo. It was both Asians and a few other people, ethnicities thrown in. And then, but the town is only, 11% Latinx, when so many of them live in town. They don't live in Lawson Hill, for example, and they don't live in the ski ranches, and they don't live in Ophir. Some
That's
of them
that's census data.
I know.
And that's the problem with the census is they didn't participate despite all the efforts to try to do it because of their concerns about. getting
So
sent
one way
back.
to handle this would be to just have a disclaimer and a footnote that says, we're relying on census data. It may be inaccurate in some of the following ways. Other data shows some other trends. I'm just making a suggestion, but I think if you're hearing this from many people, we all feel like this is not quite right.
Apparently we lost
And I
200
think
200 people.
we can add that.
Easily. Yes, Todd.
Yeah, and like Kathy, I put all my stuff on the spreadsheet and I didn't bring the spreadsheet with me. But
I can.
I've got the.
well,
Yeah.
in the business sectors, I remember there was something that was
It says real estate twice.
real estate shows twice and it's,
Finance, insurance, real estate, and then real estate / holding.
So that's confusing because we don't know what real estate means in these different contexts.
We can go ahead and clarify that. We tried to simplify this, but that table is actually like 30 cells large, and it's just a lot of information. So we'll go back and look at that and maybe add footnotes to define what is finance real estate versus real estate holdings.
Thanks. Any other
Mhm.
comments on this page?
I've got some hands raised. I don't know if you're interested in taking public comment.
We can do public comment at the end. Otherwise, we'll never.
Yeah,
get
they
through
might
this.
want to make a note of the page.
Yeah, just if you're a member of the public, we will have public comment at the end of this process, but I want to do the board first. All right, let's go on to the next page. We did, good. All right. Comments on this page. So. Let's see. Oh, so in the weaknesses section, this is the first time I've seen this table. And I think it's really a brilliant way to capture the things that you have in this table in a very visually compelling way. But I'm concerned about the weaknesses section in a couple points. First off, in-town parking and frequency of local transit. The weakness is not that we don't have enough in-town parking. The weakness is that we don't have a transit system that enables people to leave their car elsewhere or that reduces traffic to a level town can support. So those two things are linked, and I would hope that we can express that in a way that says, we don't want more in-town parking. That's not the point. The point is that we want to reduce, and you've said this later in your report, we want to reduce vehicle use. And in order to do that, we need more better in-town transit. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Great point.
The other thing is the communication and transparency and governance. And since I'm not responsible for communicating in any way on behalf of the town, I can say this in a non-biased way. I would like to know, that comment came out of one public meeting, as I understand it, where there were a bunch of people who weren't happy with some decisions town had made. This happens all the time. People who aren't happy with a decision suddenly come in and say, I didn't hear about this, even though we've had multiple public meetings. We've actually had people come in here and say, anytime you do a regulation, I would like to get a personal letter months in advance telling me all about it. It's like, no, we really can't operate that way. We have to operate in a way that's compatible with the highest standards of governance in towns like ours. And so what I think is missing in this analysis is, what do other towns do that we're not doing? And what can we do better in that respect? And I'm perfectly happy to do whatever the best standard is and go along with that.
Mhm.
Other thoughts, Todd?
Yeah, and Phil brought up my spreadsheet, so I'd like to go back 2 pages to the what's this plan about piece? And why do this now? And revisit the small town piece that you brought up as the introduction. I'm pretty adamant that we need small. We are small physically and we're bounded by the mountains, but we're also small in our,
Geography.
well, it's geography, but also our approach to the world. We're not trying to be big and cosmopolitan. We're small. And that was the feedback that came back to me through all the public discussions and the pop-ups and even the big meeting that we had, that, yeah, we're small. We do not have any delusions about becoming the Roaring Fork Valley or Boulder or anything like that. We're small and we're going to be small, and everything that we do in our planning that comes out of this is to keep us that way.
Kathy?
I would just like to back Todd up on that small is very important, because not only do we not want to be grandiose, our, mass and scale limitations in the land use code and the mass and scale part of the historic guidelines are really quite small. We have no interest in having giant buildings. They can be in Mountain Village, or better yet, they can be in some other county. So I think we want to emphasize that. And So we could, yeah, and maybe you define it by saying small in a geographical location that can be developed, small in what can be built, and small in total population. Because these days, if there's 2,000 full-time locals and a potential of 10,000 beds in our town limits, a town of 12,000 people is pretty small. And if you count us as a town of 2,000 people, we're really small. So, and I think that's something that we all want to maintain. There's probably a few developers who don't want that, but they can go elsewhere in our county or elsewhere in our state.
So other people's thoughts on small? Charles?
Well, I think the other, in the retreat and I guess the event at the transfer warehouse, we talked about, or capacity came up, which I think kind of goes back to the same thing, that we only have so much capacity of how we can grow or how big we can get, which is kind of where we are now. So I think, and that didn't seem to be in the rest of the document so much. So I think that's all kind of the same thing. It's,
Small.
yes, I agree, small capacity limits, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think I'd like to stay away from we are limited, because that's not necessarily the case. We have we provide lots of opportunities, but we are physically
Bounded.
Constrained.
right. We were physically constrained by geography, by our core value to preserve our history, and physically, in terms of a community, we can only have so many folks. We can only, have so many cars, because there's only so much right away. So we need to somehow express that. Maybe small is a quaint term, but maybe we can do a better search. I mean, and I'm not saying that as a pejorative. I'm just saying it is tough to define, as they pointed out, but I think maybe we could get our heads around a little better way to define that.
So
Maybe
ahead.
we could, but small town resonates with most people.
yeah, I mean, and you actually used small town at one point in your
Montrose
discussion.
considers themselves a small town.
Yeah.
Salida considers them a small town. They're about 5 times bigger than we are. So it's almost a marketing term.
Yeah.
In our case, it might be, but it's also fact.
So I guess I'm interested in what the pushback was to small, because you've heard some pretty good explanation of why we like it.
We had a good, I think, a good discussion similar to this actually, in the retreat. And there was, I think small was brought up, and someone at the retreat, I don't recall exactly who it was. There was a little bit of pushback on the use of the word small, maybe not from this commission, but from some of the other members in the room. And so we did take a pause and talk about exactly what you're talking about now. What does small mean? Does it mean small town geographically? Is it small in population? Is it small in the way that it grows? And so what I'm hearing from this conversation is that is important to the identity of Telluride, and that we should incorporate into this introduction something around a small town, and probably some sentences following that describe what this conversation is capturing, that it's small geographically, you're bound by the mountains and constrained, that is not a cosmopolitan place, that it has a small town feel. I think one other piece of the small conversation from the retreat that I recall is small also meant kind of this idea of community, that you know your neighbor. And I think we can go review those notes and integrate a paragraph that talks about that into this introduction. That sounds like the direction that I'm hearing, if all of you agree.
Yeah, and you in fact captured some of this in the value of connected.
Exactly.
Is, that's a piece of small
Yes.
as well.
Just to follow up on the other half of small, we are not small-minded. We think big in terms of innovation. So it's not a mental frame of mind. It is more of a physical representation, but it's also, we understand who we are, I guess is is.
Yeah, that's the
point.
authentic. They use the word authentic for that.
Yeah, authentic. There are lots of better descriptors that I think if you follow on would
Kathy, you're
be
bursting to
good.
say something.
Well, we're saying we're small geographically and yeah, we're in a narrow valley
Canyon.
with Box Canyon with mountains all around us. But almost all of that land is also public land that we're never going to be able to develop, nor do we want to trade to develop it. So I mean, it's always, and I think in past plans and stuff, we've always acknowledged that it's an asset, not a liability to have a limited amount of private land for development. It makes you have to use your land wisely, not carelessly. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with words.
So it sounds like you have a framework of some ideas and a way to approach this problem, and we'll see. how it
Yep.
goes. All right,
Thank you.
so moving on, I think we are now back at the page with the little boxes, strengths and weaknesses.
Or no, that, hang on.
Does anybody else have any comments
I
on
do.
that page? Yes, Angela.
We have rapid change under opportunities and threats. I'm not sure everybody understands what you
if-
mean by that.
Yeah, maybe we can add a sentence that, this is something, if you recall, we also talked through a bit at the retreat as well. And that was something that we had drawn an arrow between threats and opportunities. I find that is often one of the challenge with using a SWOT, a strength, weakness, opportunity, threats matrix, is that oftentimes there's correlation and things are interrelated. So perhaps we can add some text that might explain that better, or further define what rapid change means as an opportunity and what rapid change means as a threat.
Right, that would be good.
Other comments on this page? Todd?
There's and I think it was back the previous page again. Economic context, yeah. And this plan can't get at it, and some of the stuff that the town manager was talking to council about with short-term rentals, but the significant percentage of multifamily properties in town are short-term rentals.
Tell me about it.
Well,
Yeah.
but it plays into this economic context in that they're multifamily housing, but they're not housing people. They're-
Right, I
they're
think
part
they
of
get
that
at that.
base.
I think they
Yeah.
get at that a little bit. It says, well, some of these figures seem to get at that problem a little bit, but you haven't actually used the term short-term rental anywhere in this document. I don't know whether that's because it's loaded or what, but I think maybe spelling that out a little more might be helpful.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is the way it is here doesn't highlight that those are not, those properties are not available for long-term rentals because they're short-term.
There are accommodations.
They're accommodations
not
rather than
housing.
multifamily housing.
I think they do talk some about that.
Well,
But
yeah,
it probably.
it's,
So
It's the
there is
complexity
a,
of being a resort.
there is a statement here that says approximately 46% of the existing housing units are considered vacant. And based on data, that's the best we can do to acknowledge that a significant portion is used for accommodations and not housing for local residents. One of the recommendations is to get more in depth with a housing assessment that would be able to capture all that data and make some more informed decisions as to exact percentages of how many those might be. But that would require pulling from some different sources and probably quite a bit more in-depth digging than this. So we did try to acknowledge that based on the information available. suggesting that about 46% is vacant might give you at least a framework, though not an exact number of vacation rentals.
That's a huge percentage.
Yeah, and obviously one problem that we see, we talk about dark houses and vacant units and lack of long-term rental in town a lot. And maybe we should put that in a little more pointedly in this document, just to acknowledge the problem.
Yeah, when we get to that page around housing, I think there is a goal or a strategy around that. But if not, we should certainly add one.
All right,
Yeah, this should
let's,
set the stage for that
yeah,
discussion.
but we could put that in. Yeah. We could put that in perhaps as a weakness. Something about housing might be in there as a weakness. There's nothing about housing right now as a weakness. And so it's something like loss of housing or
Mhm.
loss of affordable housing.
Or
the
loss of
workforce.
long-term rentals that are not publicly owned or deed restricted. Loss of free market and long-term rentals.
And that we definitely have stats on that.
Actually, we don't.
We did.
We have stats on the number of properties that have changed hands. We have stats on the number of short-term rentals. But we don't have stats on the number of properties that were
Right.
long-term that are no longer.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. But
Right.
we know
We know there's a bunch of them.
we know that that's diminished and that's one of our threats. It's a loss of free market, long-term rentals, and they were not always priced at $10,000 a month a unit. They were reasonably priced and anybody could live there and be an active member of our community, not just someone working the prescribed number of days and hours a year. And that was an important part of our community we know has changed. And we're regretting not having it.
So I don't know how you can capture that as a weakness, but I think something about this phenomenon is definitely a big part of our problem.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll add some bullet points to capture this conversation. Thank you all.
All right, the next section, go
I
ahead.
just had
Nisha.
I had one comment from, and I was at the retreat. I just was surprised that we don't have more opportunities. I know we have a lot of strengths and we have a lot of threats, but I just felt like that came up a little short and.
Yeah, it is short. There's only 3 of them.
Yeah.
There should be more. I
Um,
thought I had the same impression.
Yeah, and I was there, so I don't remember it standing out so much at the retreat. But now looking at it, I'm just wondering if it seems pessimistic.
Yeah, we can review those notes and see if there's a way we can expand on that.
Kathy?
We have a fairly new, fairly comprehensive, and when I say ambitious, I don't mean that negatively, parks plan, both for our river parks and especially for our town park. And while some money concerns might slow down our improvements, we have recreation improvements coming soon to us. We have a plan for recreation improvements, which I think we should view as an opportunity. And it is going to create both economic opportunities as well as health and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Health, wellness, better things for our young adult, teenage population.
One of the innovations, and they're actually, their space is on our agenda tonight, is opportunities for organizations to foster new ideas, to engage our youth in some dramatic education opportunities on different levels. Maybe something to that effect would be not a physical thing, but more of a cultural broadening. If that makes.
Yeah, so let's see, I think Lisha is right, that at the retreat, we had a bunch of ideas about innovation and education, and we had some other ideas, maybe you can go back and take a look at. Go ahead.
Certainly, we can add to that list and feel free to send Phil any additional things you think of. He can relay that message to us and we can make sure that gets captured here.
Great. The next section was a description of the engagement. And I doubt, I didn't have any comments about that section. Did anybody else?
I just had one. We list 1,142 survey participants and 1,356 total participant. What's the difference between a participant and a total participant?
They only participated partly.
Yeah.
Well, some of people just came to those meetings
Yeah.
and never really did a survey. Yeah.
We can probably just change that to be a different metric. I agree that seems a little funny. So maybe we change this to total open house participants.
Or total participants, I think is fine, and say surveys returned or surveys completed.
Yeah.
Let's do it that way. And then it's obvious that we
clear.
had other methods to collect information.
Okay.
Great.
We can do that.
All right. So now we're moving on to future vision. And you should, so this is page 20, maybe?
Hang on, not that
Right.
far. We're,
Did you have comments about the
We-
description?
About the engagement, we're all
yeah,
in engagement.
we were just on 10.
Yeah, and we're gonna
so
slip all the
11.
way to the next.
So I skipped the engagement part because that's a description of what they did.
Correct.
Oh,
Described
There's
it.
some
Well-
typos and things in there, but
Yeah, we can,
Okay.
send-
Okay.
Not big.
we can send them comments.
Okay, so we're on
Charles,
page 15.
Charles wanted to say something first.
no, I can just make that as,
All right. So we're on the page with the picture, future vision number 3.
I think.
Good.
Matter of fact, it's.
Framework is okay. Core values is page 16.
We did that already.
here.
I have
again, we-
comments.
We
on that.
talked about small town.
Wait,
It's in
wait,
the
wait.
vision statement.
Right.
We talked about that. I have, the next thing I have is 2, community engagement, and then I didn't have anything on that.
Wait, I had a comment back on what's
Sorry,
page 21 in the vision statement. Why
Well,
does,
we're not there yet.
oh, okay, then I'll be quiet. until we
We're
get
not there yet. Page,
So just
going
just
now to-
clarifying, Eleni, there's page numbers,
teeny little
on-
page numbers in
I
the
know.
corner.
but it's also recorded in terms of the
Slide,
actual electronic
and the slide.
document.
All right, so I'm
as
going
page
to
15,
slide
so-
the slide with the 3 future vision and the drone picture of Telluride. This is slide number 14, and it's tiny little page number. I can't even read it. Okay,
Is
Make
that one,
19.
it's on, it's up there. That one.
That one, that's,
Right, we all there?
that's their 19 and
Okay,
this.
sorry,
this
I'm
one-
sorry, this is confusing. We're just trying to follow along. All right, now, in the future vision, did anybody have any comments on the introduction and vision framework? These words are really, really important. We've talked about small. So we all had comments about small, that's in the vision statement. And does anybody have any other comments on these words, which are super, super important? Otherwise, I thought this was really beautifully drafted, this part. So did everybody else, I guess.
Yes.
All right, so we've talked about core values, Kathy.
Well, on the vision statement itself, I do not want that word citizens. I want that word to be residents. We have people who would like to be citizens and can't be. We have people who've always chosen to carry 2 or 3 other passports and never get a US passport, and they're active members of our community and they're not citizens.
I think they meant citizens of Telluride.
Well, the citizens is a defined word that you're a citizen and you can vote. So I want to, get that to me is not who we care about. I care about the residents of Telluride.
Where's that phrase?
It's the last,
The
it's in the last.
Oh, yeah, residents, workers and visitors. That
blue
makes
box.
sense.
Yeah.
That's an easy
Yeah,
switch.
that's an easy switch.
Yeah.
All right, so the core values, principles of livability, we like them.
I have a comment on we are sustainable.
Okay, Angela.
It says we are stewards of our community. And I'd like to modify the next sentence to say, fostering the sense of place and stewarding our natural beauty ensures our community, economy, and environment will thrive for future generations.
Yeah, I like that too. It's like our action.
Okay, yeah.
The place is not going to do it for us.
Could you repeat that so I could capture it?
I'll try. Okay, fostering a sense of place and stewarding our natural beauty ensures our community, economy, and environment will thrive for future generations.
And if you don't want to say stewarding twice, you can find another word.
Yeah, right. If you wanna-
Caretaking, whatever.
Yeah, well, we use stewards
Protecting.
Preserving.
to start.
Protecting,
Protecting,
preserving.
preserving is more
Lots.
positive than protecting.
Well, stewards is, I think, more active in some ways.
Okay.
So that's why I used it. And then in under we are authentic, and I was not able to come to the retreat. I apologize. Maybe these things have been discussed already, but I'm also seeing it for the first time, so maybe I'm seeing something different than you guys have. We have funky local arts culture, which I think is great. I would say to the historic heritage, it's both character and history. And his heritage to me is history, but character is what we hold as our design guidelines. So I'm not sure if everybody interpreted it that way, but I thought historic character was important.
Do you want it to say historic
Character
character and heritage? Okay, then
You like that one?
I like
Okay.
both of those words.
Would you prefer to keep heritage or change it to history? Our historic, so is it historic character and heritage or historic character and
Want both-
history?
I think we want both words.
Yeah, because
And
one,
and I'm asking, do we use heritage or history? Which word are you preferring?
I would say heritage.
Okay.
Yeah, and that could go all the way back to our acknowledgement of the nation, the tribes and specifically who were here, coming forward to the mining history that we have. And all of that is heritage.
Heritage is good.
So would it be Telluride's heritage?
Well, we don't
It's
need
pretty
this, we
obvious.
don't need to say Telluride because
Okay.
I'll tell you.
some of our heritage extends beyond the boundaries, but it's all very integrated. So I don't
I
think we
get your
need.
point.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
great.
good. Let's go to
Thank you.
our first discussion. We have some actual goals. Housing solutions. I have that next. All right, so first, I have a problem with the picture. This is a picture
Oh,
of
second
very
one?
nice, new, single family, probably largely vacant homes. And that is not a housing solution. So I would rather have something that conveys the idea of a housing solution. And if you want little the houses, take a picture of Gold Run or take a picture of
Some of the affordable housing.
some-
like
Spruce-
Gold Run is affordable housing.
Spruce House.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of other opportunities, but this picture just was like, if you know this, if you know what those houses are, it really bothers me.
Or the,
Yep,
what's the name
we
of
can
the
change that.
building?
Silver Chat.
Silver Gem.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of
Because
very
it's-
beautiful affordable housing, Lot B. There's plenty of beautiful affordable housing that Telluride has built.
We can help with that.
Yeah.
Ron will send you a picture.
Pictures.
That's great.
Great.
Other comments?
One thing I thought,
Angela?
under goal 2, I think that was what I said, Bill. Is just a general comment on affordable housing programs. I've always wanted to emphasize that it's not just about housing, but it's also about distribution within the community. And I don't know if that is expressed anywhere here, but that should be stated somehow, and maybe it can be mentioned in one of the goals, strategies and actions that you already have. But I think that's a really important thing, that we are not segregating our affordable housing opportunities.
I'm not having, there are no
They are
projects.
integrated.
That they're distributed
Yes.
into every geographical section of our community or of our town.
Right. Every zoning.
That's at least a
district,
goal.
Yeah.
I had a problem, and I think Todd had a problem too, with the word actual people.
Yeah.
It's actual people live here. No, I'm not a robot. And
Okay.
maybe we should say working people, full-time residents. I'm not even sure what you meant in this
Or just
context.
people.
Yeah.
It's
People.
important that people live here. That's over in the.
Oh, it's in the description, sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't. catch
Actual
that one.
people.
Okay.
I mean, I
We
understand
can,
that was like excited emphasis. Kathy, did you have something?
Oh, well, the last part of in goal to partner with local developers to incentivize production of affordable attainable housing by the free market. I like a lot of that, but somehow I've never really seen private-public partnerships work out here. I've always seen the public use and the private win 100% of it. So that I do think that the private sector needs to do affordable housing and should be responsible for it, not just the governments. But I do not want to have any words that encourage public-private partnerships. That's my very strongly held personal opinion.
Todd,
I'm
Yep.
sure I am,
Todd,
and I hope I live long enough to be proven right.
Todd.
And it
I have
shows,
to wait till
Wrong.
100.
Or wrong.
Or wrong.
yeah,
Proven right that they don't work.
Yeah.
Todd.
it shows up several different places here. It's in goal 1, it's the last one. Under goal 2 is this incentives. Where are the incentives gonna come from? Yeah. That's,
We've tried.
well,
Oh, it's money, but
there's lots of ways to do it, but the implication of the words as read by somebody in the community is the government's gonna give me an
town
give
should
me
spend
money
money
to
on
do
this. Well, I think that's what they're saying. Town should spend money on this.
town is already spending horrendous amounts of money on this.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
as Kathy just pointed out, the private is not.
They're not
And-
acknowledging their responsibility.
on this, would you like some kind of clarification that incentives could be financial? They could be process. They could be related to maybe availability of land, or they could be zoning incentives. Do you want us to get into that type of detail of the different types of incentives when it comes to housing?
Maybe they just need to do it without incentives.
yeah, that won't happen.
Well, I think,
Well,
for
Todd, this is
me
your comment.
personally, it's the word incentive. When that goes through my brain, that's money in my hand.
Well, why don't we
money
say
is so-
financial or other incentives? That would help a little bit.
A variety of
I mean,
incentives.
we don't have, we as a town have very limited ability to do, people say, well, give them their taxes, but well, I'm sorry, that's not within our capability to do. Property taxes are decided.
This is a tough
Look
area
different, huh?
because, obviously affordable housing has been a topic in this town for some decades and is increasingly important. And everybody's trying to, we've tried to raise money in a variety of ways for it. We've spent a fair amount of money on doing it. And we've thought about, this commission has thought about a number of non-financial incentives, none of which have proven remotely useful. So this is a topic on which we have a great deal of cynicism and some
Actual
some
experience.
resistance. So you just need to take that into account, Kathy.
Can we just take the word incentive out and put in the word create? And then it might be through a financial incentive, or it might be something different.
So explore creative programs and subsidies.
Create the production of programs or something like that. And my understanding in Aspen, which has a lot more land to work with than we do, there's always been this thing where a deed restricted housing developer would buy a chunk of land and put up mini units to make it more affordable. And they get to sell them twice. And it doesn't get any money from the town of Aspen. They sell them once to the developer to be the mitigation that they're required to develop. And then they turn around and sell them to the qualified resident that's deed restricted. So the reason they can make it work with no money from the town or maybe some minor, fee adjustment is they're selling the units to the developers instead of the developers paying Aspen, and they're selling the units to the actual owner who is then qualified, and then it becomes an Aspen housing unit that's controlled. It's not free market. But I think that's brilliant. We just don't have chunks of land like that a private person can build and develop. But, if I want to see things like that come up, not that involve the town, giving them money to build something. So I think creative, it works for me, or create.
Obviously, the town is going to continue to raise its own funds and build its own housing. That's how 99.9% of the affordable housing in town is created, especially now that we are losing the ADUs.
Are we using, well, let's not,
Or-
we need to
We don't
work
need to
on
wait.
EDUs at some other point, what's going on.
Well, they
with them.
talk about secondary dwelling policies. What did you mean by a secondary dwelling? Now that you're there. What's a secondary dwelling?
The empty second units that are not deed
Accessory here.
restricted. Yeah, accessory or.
Accessory
caretaker-
units? Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
That's what I took it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that might be a
in fact,
more
they-
accurate term,
No,
accessory.
actually, they had accessory in there. Staff changed it to secondary,
Oh,
because that's how we call them.
Right.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, fine,
that's what we call
fine.
them? Okay.
My ignorance.
Good.
That's fine. To
Yeah.
ensure this isn't easy and affordable housing, I wish.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other comments on this page?
Yeah,
This
I-
is a very charged page. We're gonna have lots of
Well,
comments.
and
Charles, and then
again,
Todd.
around the word incentives or subsidies shows up in that first one.
Mhm.
And we've talked carrots and sticks and lots of different things, but
Yelling and screaming.
that too,
Yeah.
shaming, public shaming.
Charles?
The idea that they captured here is right,
He's done.
but we don't want the words to imply that the only way this happens is by the government to give them money.
Yeah. So wordsmith that a bit.
Yeah, creative program.
Creative.
I'd also like to note, I think one of the biggest things that came out of the retreat was this idea of an updated housing study that can give some solid data to help inform decision-making around some of these things. And the reality is that a vision plan like this is just not designed or meant to go into the depth of detail in order
Right.
to give strong direction. And I think that that's an immediate next step from moving forward, is to get the data that you need to get a little bit more specific around strategies to achieve these goals.
Yeah,
I think that's right. I mean, I would obviously want to know what town council and the housing authority think about that. But I assume that there would be, if town council's on board with a new study, great,
it's been
They
initiated.
already,
We're fairly.
great. So Charles, you go ahead and then I have a comment.
Okay, so I guess just back on that housing study, I would like for it to kind of emphasize a little bit that we would have more of an ongoing housing year to year. So we see our,
Trend.
the trend.
Mhm.
I mean, we talked earlier about, losing the free market, long-term housing and, we all know that's happening, but we don't know what that number is. And I think we could see what that trend is over time. Maybe that would be more incentive sometimes for
So it'd
people.
be
to-
support ongoing housing
Monitoring.
assessment,
Yeah,
needs assessments.
housing stock assessment. what-
Housing stock, because it's not what we need, it's like, what have we always had and what's
Yeah,
changing, so
what's
we have to
changed.
fill in.
Right.
And we used to do that between Hark and P and Z as a coloring exercise
Yeah,
every year with no outside consultants that cost money. And it didn't really take more than an hour of each meeting. It was very quick, and I don't know why we can't do that still.
Well, we can. That can be one piece of it.
Mhm.
I think we should.
And
go
I
ahead.
got, and then on goal one, I know we have the consider age and place strategies, but I don't know that. Would we want to add one that says consider, I guess, change in, I don't know, either income status or family size status? I know that's come up
Downsizing.
that, whether people are downsizing or upsizing, that you've got somebody that's a family of 4 and the kids go off to college, and then that family's like, okay, well, now we're in a 3-bedroom unit. We only need 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms now, but
We want to stay.
we want to stay in Telluride, but there should be a mechanism for people to move into.
Yeah, town council
I-
apparently had talked about
They're
this at
working
length.
on it.
Yeah.
THA as well. I'm sorry, if I may, can we keep this a little higher level? We're getting really granular.
Yeah.
I love it. I love all these ideas. I'm very supportive, but if we can focus on the visioning for tonight. We have a full agenda. We're already well past an
All right.
hour.
Okay, I've got one just high level thing, and I know we changed it, the opening sentence on housing solutions, I know we changed it to we strive, but the first thing I see is affordability for all. And I just still think people are gonna go like,
All who,
we all have to have housing here, and we can't provide housing for all. So
Yeah.
just the word all still bothers me, even though we did somewhat address it last time by putting the word we strive for all, but
Okay.
I don't know.
I would stop the sentence after affordability myself. We strive to have a mix of housing type, sizes, and affordability. Boom. What we want.
Yeah.
I just want to put on record that and I'm sure others, do not agree with Kathy's total pessimism on public-private partnerships. I think they're possible. I think we should definitely explore them. And I think that it's just a matter of town council having backbone to put in the right parameters, and that can be done, And so I don't think this is something we should take out. I think it's something we should do well.
And I think that we should bring in the innovation and the creative solutions that don't just invite incentives. To Todd's point, it's not just about the money.
Financial incentive.
So,
All right, should we go on to the economy?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Guys,
I'm sorry.
this applicant that
Yes, we have an applicant who's waiting. If you would like to go away for half an hour and come back, that
at
would be
least a
fine.
half an hour.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm
You
sorry.
can stay
we'll
and
not
listen.
Get to
You
you.
can stay.
We'd love to have
If
your
you're Doing
per-
our homework, that's
Yeah.
great.
You're welcome to stay or not, as you choose. You can go sit wherever you want. All right, a vibrant economy. Where's this? Okay. I had a comment on the first paragraph. This sentence, however, hotels and accommodations are somewhat lacking in Telluride, which can provide a strong tax base and support local industries. All right, first, that's a terrible sentence. Secondly, hotels and accommodations are not lacking in Telluride. I think we have, when town is full, and there are plenty of people staying here. And
They're more
We
staying
may-
up in Mountain Village.
and if they're staying in Mountain Village, that may also be okay, actually, because how many more people can we actually fit in the parameters of Telluride? So I have some issue with that sentence. We can.
I
remove it.
agree.
Take that out. Yeah.
Also, I think Todd made this point that when you use the phrase casual dining, I mean, I'm okay with that. We all means it means affordably priced.
Everybody's casual here, if that.
Right, we're
refers
always
to dress.
casual. We're casual at the
So-
National. Yeah.
maybe the clothes.
Okay, does anybody have any comments on this page up on the goals or anything like that?
Todd does.
Yeah.
yes, sorry.
Again, the same comments on the previous page about incentives, or the word incentives and subsidies. So we talk about subsidies for startups and incubators, and it shows up a couple of places in here that we just need to be careful with that. And then very specifically, there's a vacancy tax
Yeah.
mentioned.
B.
And that's, it's gotta be a fee. It can't be a
Fee.
tax.
Yeah, we're in Colorado, no taxes, only fees. I had a comment on the Explore subsidy for startups and incubators too, which is something like Explore support for startups and incubators, because we did have the Telluride Venture Accelerator, which although it's kind of gone away during COVID, it's still there and hopefully will be more visible. Any other comments on these goals?
Yeah, we were doing that not with town of Telluride money. It was all
Mhm.
private sector nonprofit money that was doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, so it's not a subsidy, it's a support. We're supporting, we would support them by providing,
Exactly.
you know, whatever. Other comments on this page?
I just felt like, as far as the goals, I guess what I see is, you know, a need for businesses is employees to have housing. And I know maybe that's kind of part of the housing section, but I think it should be pointed out that a lot of businesses are struggling. Not, you know,
They have a product that's desirable. They don't have anybody
they don't
to
have-
serve it.
right.
Serve it or
prepare it.
sell it or.
And I think
Okay.
having that in this section as well, you know, really emphasizes that housing is a problem, not just for people to live, but it affects the businesses as well.
And
Yeah, we can add that.
yeah,
I-
it's sort of implied in a couple of places, but I have tried personally at least 10 times to get a Chamber of Commerce re-going, and it just sputters and dies because of a lot of the things that are mentioned here. But
That they suggested again.
and it's appropriate. We just need to find a way to make it
Happen.
work, make it feasible.
Other comments on this page? I mean, I think they think it's a good comment.
Where do clubs like Rotary, Elks, and those fit into this? Because they're obviously providing a certain amount of support there. You know, there's Angel Baskets, there's the foundation, there's.
Those are all nonprofits.
Right,
So we could say something like work with nonprofits to
yeah,
blah,
right.
yeah.
They provide a certain amount of the
A lot. We have a lot of nonprofits in this town.
support for the table that holds us together as a community. So
Yeah, maybe something about the role of nonprofits would be useful here.
Is it economy
Yeah.
or is it over in the community?
It's both. I mean, they do support our economy in a lot of ways.
I mean, could the nonprofits go in goal 1 and then the housing go in goal 3? Like encourage health and wellness and housing of the local workforce and incentivize, support local businesses, entrepreneurs and nonprofits,
Mm-hmm,
just to consolidate.
yeah. Other comments on this economy page? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to locally scaled infrastructure. Thoughts on this page?
yeah, I had some. hang on.
Angela?
Right.
Back to my-
Charles?
I'll start. It seemed like in I guess the retreat, we talked about the town needing a capital improvement plan or not, and that it seemed to have gotten lost.
Town
in this.
has capital improvement plan, has had for 10 years.
Well, I guess, and
And it's part of the budget. It's on
Every
the
year.
town webpage.
I think, talking about capital improvement program, where it's
Yeah.
a 5-year program.
yeah. I guess,
Like
I
a.
don't-
the
Call it that?
implementation.
Is it forward-looking?
Yes,
yes.
5 years.
5 years out.
I guess I just remember that from the retreat as one of the goals,
Yeah,
but
one of the things that people who are ignorant about it don't know that it exists. Therefore, they think it should be created and it's already there. So that gets into a different area about communication and community, at least for me, but
Yeah,
There's a strategy right here. The first one is review and update the 5-year capital improvement plan to ensure adequate ongoing maintenance of current infrastructure.
all right,
Check that
Does
box.
that address that?
somehow I missed that, sorry.
Check that box.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
on that same recurring program, I think it does speak to long-term and short-term maintenance of certain items. Streets and bridges, yes. Sidewalks, I would refer to that more as pedestrian and bicycle trail systems or systems, rather than just referring to streets and bridges.
Or just sidewalks.
Right.
Because we're gonna have
So,
other.
I think what it's trying to get to is that we have basic infrastructure for cars, but we also need infrastructure for different other kinds of ways to get around, bicycle, transit, and pedestrian. So
Yeah, I
that
would
should
like
be
to s-
reworded, maybe.
I would like to see the word accessible in here somewhere, because this is one of the hardest towns to get around in a wheelchair or any scooter or anything like that. And we should probably have it, this is a goal.
We need an accessible travel, path of travel if we could. But our geography is obviously.
It's difficult, but we should have it as a goal.
It was identified in the recent budget for capital improvements as extreme priority. Do you have any
Okay.
comments here? Comments?
A lot of the stuff in goal one about transportation infrastructure is outside of the purview of town. It's our transportation district, which is not town. So we need to.
It does say work with
careful
smart.
about recommending things that are not ours to control, but the coordination, cooperation with,
Support for, et cetera.
support for that we need to do, but
Does it bother you that it says work with smart?
nope, doesn't
Okay.
bother me at all.
So that's fine.
I think that is.
All right. Other comments on this page? Nope, good. Moving on. A sustainable environment. We will get through this by 7.
Okay,
Anybody have any comments on the sustainable environment?
I do.
Yes.
Goal
Angela.
1, conduct an annual training for whom?
Are we?
So I think that,
Goal 1,
in other words,
sustainable environment.
is it for the public at large? Is it for certain groups, which I think they probably already do? I think the goal of this is to educate all of us as to, have our, what Ready, Set, Go means, and where we're at and what the expectations are of that we might run into in terms of emergencies emergency preparedness, I think is the term everybody uses.
So do you want it to say conduct annual training for residents,
And
Yeah.
how about annual training and outreach?
outreach and for residents?
community.
Yeah. Well, for residents and property owners for best practices and all that. That would make sense, but. And that's
Just
that's
left
what
it
they do.
hanging, so.
Yeah, but the ones that have clearly been for either property owners that are not full-time or anybody who lives here
Mm,
full-time.
Because the next part is, there's a thing that says we're going to work with the fire district. So they're ready.
So under goal 2, I had under the second one, private accessible open space. I didn't know what that was.
Hmm. We don't have any.
Come to a heart meeting.
Right, well, the other part of that is accessible. What kind of access are you talking about? Accessible is more used in the context of ADA necessarily than it is in access, public access to something as opposed to accessibility.
Yeah.
So it was just terminology maybe to make more
So
clear.
there are private open lands, but we don't have a whole lot of them right in Telluride. Kathy.
We have the hillside that's just east of where I live that has an extensive trail
Mhm.
system on it.
That's one.
And we recently got that in exchange for the PUD. And it's, I see people on that all the time. So, and we have other pieces like that that are smaller. You might not realize that you have left town of Telluride open space and gone on to private open space when you're walking on some trail. But I think Angela's right. There's no way that the hillside by me is going to be wheelchair accessible for even. a very-
And I don't think that's what you intended.
I think this
Oh.
this was in the retreat, and I think the idea was, from what I remember, we talked about if someone puts a conservation easement on a piece of property that they own 100 acres, I mean, there's nothing in town that's gonna happen, but around town, that's great, but that's private property now, and no one else gets to use it to,
Right.
if there's a trail going across it or something, and that's
More about connectivity,
Yeah.
it sounds like. Access through that sort of thing. Are we being clear about what we're not understanding?
Yeah, Yeah, you are. And the conversation in that group was about open space that the public can access. It's not about ADA accessibility.
Right.
And it's trying to incentivize the private creation of those spaces. So we'll clarify that language. I think you're right that it's confusing here. So we'll clarify that.
Okay, and then in goal 3, partner with local agencies, which is great. I was thinking about businesses that have products that impact our community and somehow partnering with them. And I'm talking about folks who rent e-bikes and mountain bikes and whatever. Bring that, not so much the skis, but folks who run businesses that impact our community, and having a relationship with them, and not just public agencies, for instance, or nonprofits.
Do you want to say recreation and guide businesses then?
Yeah.
Because,
Sure.
for example, the companies that charge a lot of money and guide a lot of trips on the Via Ferrata work very closely with our mountain club to do the maintenance on the Via Ferrata. And to both buy equipment and furnish the workers to actually do the maintenance. So, but that's something we
That
want
kind of
to,
relationship,
we
I
want to
think so.
continue that, whether it's for trail maintenance or whether it's for the Via Ferrata or whether it's for, the county wants to do the dirt roads, but maybe, maybe some days they would like to have people up there from the private sector to help them out or pay for something that we really need and is not in a public budget.
All right, other comments on this one? Great, an inviting community. So on this one, I will reiterate my comment that what I think we need to do in goal 1, improve current town communications to increase connection and transparency in the public process. Great. But before we decide there's a problem, let's just compare ourselves to what other towns do and do the best thing that's out there that other towns do. Towns of our size and comparable, staffing.
Best practices.
Yeah, best practices.
Yeah.
That we can
Yeah,
manage.
We can update that to talk more about an assessment as a first step. This did come from the open house, but there were also some comments in the survey that related to this, which is why we did want to make sure that it was included. But I think you're right, talking about an assessment first rather than just saying there is a problem, let's do something, let's assess it.
Okay, great. That's my comment. Others?
I was really happy with this page.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
Everybody's happy with this page. Let's move on. Next steps. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
All I say is that I think the fact that we are an inviting community is one of the strongest assets of our town as far as allowing visitors to come here and feel comfortable immediately. Be open to coming. I mean, that's such an important thing to preserve.
I think that was really clear on the retreat that many people
Yeah.
felt that.
And those of us who've moved here more recently than others felt totally welcome.
Maybe it could be an opportunity somehow.
Yeah. Let's add it on that too short a list.
Residents. All right, next steps, and then we will open it to public comment if any of those poor people who are on Zoom have been hanging around. All right, next steps, where do we go from here? Does anybody have any comments? No, we thought this was brilliant.
And I
Great.
like that.
And the
photo.
photo is beautiful.
I do too.
My favorite.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Lisha.
Thank you very much. Those are our comments. I do want to open it up to any members of the public who have been patient enough to stick around while we commented. Thank you. Yes, please raise your hand digitally.
Kristen Kermital.
All right. Put her on.
Have asked her.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'll turn my video on if you want, or you don't have to, either way. Thanks so much for your hard work on this. Number one, Engage Telluride is, I think, a good platform for people to see this. community vision plan and this work, but I didn't see this meeting on that page. So maybe for the next meeting could be make a point to have this kind of meeting on that Engage Telluride platform. Number 2, is it an action plan or vision plan? Because a couple different places it says action and vision, and some places it just says vision. So that was just something I noticed. Pages 4 and 5. I'm looking at the history. I'm a ski instructor, and because it's snowing, I'm super excited about the ski area. And I was just wondering if you guys could tell me why the ski area aspect is not included in this anywhere.
It's not in the town of Telluride, as you know, Kristen, but
Well, the basis of the lifts are. And a lot of people that work on the ski area live in town. I just think it's a vital component of the seasonal aspect of our community. And
It's part of the economic.
Yes.
and the economics of it for sure. And I know that a lot of this research, identifying, outlining, outreach and all that stuff was conducted in the summertime, but I think someone said earlier, put some more winter photos in there, and I'm totally down with that, because that way you get the, and maybe fall photos, not just all summer, but the seasonal aspect of it, I think is important. So is that why? Because the ski area is not in Telluride, or?
No, I think,
Because I think that should be a bigger thread throughout the whole vision plan. Do you guys want the ski area to be a part of Telluride or not? I mean, is it out of the climate action plan? Is it viable? Do people want to come here and ski? Do they want to know Telluride as a ski area, or do they just want to know it as a hiking area? So that was a big thing that was glaring to me. And then 6 and 7, the ski area again opportunities. I could go through all those other pages where you could put the ski area into it, but I think you guys catch my drift there. Pages 24 and 25. I liked what you guys were talking about, the affordable housing stuff. I think it's really important to have a vision for that and maybe a timeline. I don't think it's necessary to have a whole updated study, but definitely to prioritize what the town already has, because it's here. It's like, this is what we have. And, I know you can go regionally and explore other options and stuff. Because to have another study, I mean, you can look at the Shandoka wait list. There's 190 people on the wait list to rent, to buy, to do anything. So right there, that's your study. I think that says a lot. Should I keep going? I just have a few more.
go ahead.
Go.
Okay. Pages 25 and 26, again, the vibrant economy, that's a ski area again. Page 27 and 28 in the upper left corner on why locally scaled infrastructure is important, right-sized. On the left, why is this important? It's kind of like 5 lines down, right-sized.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that just that wording kind of threw me off, to the scale, or, I agree with all of that. And then goal 2 there, I think the wastewater treatment plant master plan, there was something about sewer and regional partners in that goal 2 section. Sewer and regional partners, at the bottom. Continue coordination with San Miguel County and Mountain Village on sewer and regional partners. That doesn't really flow for me, but I think that's definitely the county and the Mountain Village. And the wastewater thing is huge. I mean, the pressure on the sewage line out, by the new development out there past Hillside, I've heard it's really like, whoa. So, I mean, I think the wastewater is definitely the biggest thing in this vision plan. That's the most immediate thing we need to deal with. And yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Kristen, so they said at the beginning, there will be a way for you to submit like wordsmithing comments, like if you want to change a word.
So where do I send those? How do I do that? Because I did also, I heard Todd say he had some edits. I saw a lot.
There'll be lots of people have wordsmithing edits, I'm sure, or typo corrections. We'd send them to Phil and he will input them into a spreadsheet.
And I think I'm gonna jump in and just say, I think the word wastewater treatment is the word we want to use rather than sewer, so that's an old word.
All right, Piper, are there any other members of the public who wish to comment?
I see no other hands raised.
We tired everybody else out. All right, so are there any other things that you would like to discuss with us? Design workshop? Nope. We've come.
No.
Jessica.
You guys.
We finished at 7 o'clock. I just want to say thanks very much again. This is really a tremendous effort. I do think it captured a lot of comments that we heard at the retreat, that we heard during the community engagement process, and it organized them really well. So we appreciate all your work.
Great, thank you. And we're looking forward to getting any other comments you have and being back with you in November with the final document.
Awesome. See you then.
Thank you all so much.
All right,
Thank
you.
you.
See ya.
Audio on your device, your phone or something that's causing that.
Sometimes with these mics too, like if you have a charging cable around it or something like touching it.
Is it me?
causes some feedback.
Well, there's a vacuum in the back.
Is the vacuum.
Oh, that.
The vacuum cleaner. Okay, do we need to take a break or can we go on to our next work session?
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. All right. Alpine planning. Chris here?
He's online.
Okay, great. Put them on.
Let me share my screen real quick.
Also,
Alexa, yeah.
All right, so this is a work session item. The project title is Lot C and D Dakota Edition. And it's a work session to continue a PUD to allow a 0-foot setback along the interior lot line for development of a duplex on 2 individual lots. The legal description is Lots C and D, AKA lots 13 and 14, Block 4, Dakota Edition. Address TBD, Zone District Residential, owner Frankie Field, LLC, applicant Alpine Planning, LLC, and Atelier Elitza, LLC. And Ron, you are presenting.
Well, this is a work session item. And the purpose for this work session, the applicant is pursuing a planned unit development. And of course, our land use code provides the opportunity for applicants to bring this in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission for your initial thoughts, or your initial response. In this case, it's an application that involves 2 lots that are impacted by the Cornet Creek. So the intent is to possibly pursue a planned unit development to allow for the 0 lot line, sharing the interior lot line between 2 residential units. Just to remind you, the public purposes identified in the land use code, I think the applicant is going to address the public purposes that are required for your consideration. And I know that the applicant has a pretty extensive presentation, so I'll just turn it over to him.
Great.
All right, Chris.
Hi, good evening. Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning. Got Elitza here as well. But first off, our client Stephanie and Spencer would like to just say a few words, if that's okay. I'm going to share my screen here in a minute. So there's should be on the phone, Piper, should be maybe under Anson or Stewart.
We're here. We got on now.
Okay, great.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. It was actually really nice to get to listen to the presentation about the vision for the community, because These are conversations we've all had in town, and the reason we wanted to do this process like this is because we really want us. The reason we love Telluride so much is it is such an inviting community. We came there and really felt at home, and it's so beautiful and everything. And we recognize that the planning and the zoning and the historic architectural review are what make the town something that we wanted to be part of, and the community is something we want to be part of. And so we want to work together with the town to come up with a vision for this property that is most consistent with the same things that made us want to come here. Some of the things that were said in the conversation about using land wisely, the limitation on the amount of units that we can actually build in town because of the small amount of land that's available. Those were very resonant with us. When we bought this lot, which is, we own the half of the duplex that's lot B. This is A, B, C, D, right? So we purchased C and D after we'd already purchased B. And before we bought it, there had been an old house on it that was wiped out in a flood of Cornet Creek. So when we bought it, we actually thought that it was only one lot that we could build one house on. But then once we hired Elitsa and she submitted her plans, she went down to the town and it's like, no, that's two lots. I mean, she literally had designed a house and then found out we had two lots, not one, and that we had to come up with a new plan. And this is a real puzzle because we have Cornet Creek, which is a beautiful part of our community. And it cuts the lot in half in a way that makes it so you really can't access them both without building a bridge across it or something. And so we've got all these puzzle pieces about what we're allowed to do and how big it can be and where it can be and where the set-offs are. And we've been trying to work this together in a way that is most appealing, like that it works the best. We want it to be a beautiful street to walk up and down. We want the creek to be available to everybody to enjoy. We want to make it as nice as we can. And so we've got some ideas that do require a variance, and we just wanted to make sure that everybody in the town, or the town council anyway, was kind of on board with what our vision is. And our unit where we live now, we love, has a common wall. And the unit on the other side of Cornet Creek are all common walls. So it seems very consistent with the whole sort of character of the area to have a duplex. And that really enabled us, I think, in the plan to minimize the wasted space between the houses and let us preserve more of the space on the side of the creek. And so we just wanted to start here to present that and sort of work with you guys and work with the town and work with Hark, because we don't want to be the people that come in and say, we love these rules because it made a beautiful town, but now we don't want the rules to apply to us. We very much embrace the whole concept behind this. And so our real purpose is to work together with the town to come up with the best possible plan. And if you really don't think this is it, we think this is it. But if you don't think it's it, we'd like to know that now so we can go back and try something else and kind of get an idea. So that's what we're looking at. And so thank you very much for having us and having me have the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Stuart. So as far as the property itself, just a little bit of the history on it. I think it's always helpful. Originally, the property was replatted in 1982 from lots 13 and 14 into lot C and D. And the main reason for the replat was creating this lot E that went to Boulder Village. So the property actually got shorter than the normal lots down the street. So, losing 17 feet off of a 25-foot wide lot is already, starting to press down the building areas. And then back in I think it was 2007, this home was basically destroyed by the Cornet Creek flood. And this is when there was just a culvert underneath the Coda Avenue, and now there's a bridge. So hopefully the bridge will not make this happen, but we know that could also get full, and it could happen. So it's a very big reality of this site. And so trying to pull away from the Cornet Creek flood is part of the goals here too as well. So there was an actual demolition permit, and the house was basically demolished in 2008. The lots, you've already understand how those are at. This lot is really, kind of unique situation because you have two lots. In the past, there would have been a culvert through here, and we don't know where that culvert came out relative to this. I just don't have that topo. But obviously with the reconstruction of the bridge after the flood, there was a much more formal stream channel created, and the bridge retaining walls and wing walls were all put in place, which really did impact Lot D quite a bit. Stuart mentioned the surrounding development, duplex to the east, triplex to the west, all of that kind of in lot line. As far as site constraints, this just shows what's really kind of Cornet Creek or unbuildable between the bridge easement and the retaining wall. It's about 10.5% of lot C and D combined, or 19% of lot D. And then there's also a southern retaining wall for Boulder Village on the property that there's no easement for it. But this again is a constraint and a major design consideration when trying to locate the home on here and ensuring that how it works with that wall. If you look at the Cornet Creek and the wetland setback, it's about 36% of the lot if the full wetland setback were applied. We're obviously going to need to seek a reduction in that wetland setback pursuant to the wetland regulations at the appropriate time. But when you have 36% of your lot area with that, and then you've got the retaining wall in the back, you can begin to see a lot of the constraints. And then access wise, the new bridge abutment really limits the space between the property corner and the bridge abutment to be about 15 feet. So it's you also have a big change in elevation of about 7 feet from Dakota Avenue to the lot. It's not abnormal in Telluride because it's hilly, but it's just another design consideration. And then we've got the floodplain zone AO depth of 2 feet, which means you actually have to design your house up 3 feet above the base flood elevation. So quite a bit going on here. And then if you apply the river park to this lot, which uncovers about 2/3 of it, there's not much room left on this lot. So I think it's one of those lots that you got to get really creative with. And when you go forward, we understand that we cannot vacate the lot line due to Citizens Petition 300. We understand that, that path, if there was some benefit, there could be, but just with use by right development, which are envisioned by Stephanie and Stuart, it's really it's not an option. So, the two options are developing each lot with a single family home or developing a duplex with a common wall along the current interior lot line. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elitza, who's done all the fabulous design work, and let her talk about her design.
Yes, thank you for the introduction and and for all your time to everyone present and listening. As it was said earlier, we've been working on this property actually for about a year, looking into the best and most viable way to deal with the challenges and opportunities the site presents. And in the meanwhile, we have built an amazing team of experts whose opinion we have been basically integrated into our studies. So these are three options that we have been studying more closely. And actually, can I share my screen instead? Is that okay?
Sure. Yes, I'll stop share.
Thank you.
No, it's coming.
Is it going up?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So basically, we looked into three options, as Chris mentioned. Two of those involved the development of the lot C and D with single family units. And we understand that the owners could elect to sell Lot D to another party or develop Lot D independently from Lot C. And an engineered access solution involving a new bridge would have to be considered by town. As we mentioned earlier, there is no land connection between lots from Lot D right on to Dakota. So either we'll need to have a bridge or we're going to need to have a common shared driveway. However, if the owners select to develop those lots independently of each other, a bridge might have to be considered. Now, a bridge would mean that you would need the adequate clearance for excavation equipment under the bridge for when Cornet Creek fills with debris from a flood event. Another thing to consider would be trenching for utilities and connection to Dakota, which again is probably a bit challenging in this scenario. And I wanted to mention that this scenario with the bridge is the only option which allows this Lot D to be developed with an enclosed parking. The other option would be to, as I mentioned earlier, to have two single-family units with a shared driveway, with one enclosed parking, and perhaps we could squeeze off-street parking on close to Cornet Creek here. It's getting super, super tight. No matter what, in both of those scenarios, the development is pushed towards Cornet Creek and it impacts wetlands more than a duplex would. Another thing to consider as well is in the single family approach, this driveway, which is quite steep, actually, we mentioned earlier, there is a 7-foot drop, and the water currently from Dakota, the street water, spills directly onto the side. This approach will be quite challenging with this scenario since the houses are pushed further and closer to Cornet Creek. Therefore, we really got excited about the duplex possibility, which would tackle most of those issues. However, a duplex on the property would require 0-foot setback to the interior property line that is currently not allowed by the residential zone district. However, in table 6-1 of the PUD regulations, it allows for up to a 0-foot setback through the PUD process. And therefore, here we are. The owners propose a 0-foot setback to the PUD regulations in Luke 6-301, which states in part, the purpose of the planned unit development review procedure is to encourage innovative site planning and clustered development by allowing flexibility in the application of the town's land development standards, so as to accommodate the following. 6-301A, open space, to encourage the establishment of common open space. 6-301C, preservation, to preserve a site's historic features, its natural and scenic resources and open areas. The proposed small-scale PUD will allow for protecting Cornet Creek wetland areas, riparian habitat, and also providing more open space on the lot. As you can see on this site plan and diagram, and we can go back to it later with questions if you'd like. Land Use Code Section 6-304C, PUD review standard states, P&Z may authorize variations in any of the dimensional limitations identified in Section 6-304A, when in its sole discretion, P&Z determines that granting the variation will enable the applicant to accomplish one or more of the following public purposes, or in the case of subsection 5 and 6 below, private purposes which would not otherwise be achieved or required by applicable land use regulations. C1, preservation of lands as public open space or protection of wetlands in Telluride or San Miguel County. we believe that PUD to allow for duplex on the property will preserve the open space area of Cornet Creek while also better protecting wetlands. It is clear that the development of a duplex will allow the need for a new bridge to access Lot D and also create better wetland setback and open space area along Cornet Creek. And with this, I wanted to say thank you again. Thank you for gathering today, and I'm very much looking towards this work session and hope to find a clear and cleared direction and the best possible way to develop these lots, and which is with align with the clients and of course with planning and zoning in town. And I was wondering if anybody has any questions and comments.
Before we go to questions, does the applicant have any more people who want to speak? Yes, it seems like you do.
Wait, we can't hear.
We
him.
can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I unmuted because I muted myself for background. I wanted to make a comment about the public space here because it's actually something we've spoken about with our neighbors, because I don't know if you're familiar with a lot, but a lot of people walk their dogs and let them run on that. That's why it's Frankie Field, because it's our dog's name is Frankie. All the dogs run in there. And by pushing this back a little bit, we'll preserve kind of an area that people can let their dogs run around the bridge and through the drive and down into the front. And it'll leave like a nice little open space there. So that's actually, there is an open space issue there that the neighbors and we have discussed about leaving that little section where the drive comes down to the creek to be clear. And so I just wanted to make that comment that it's actually a real thing there.
Any other comments from the applicant?
No, that's all I had.
All right.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Is there any public comment, Piper?
You have to call for it.
If there is any public comment, please raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature on your Zoom.
John. Ask John.
If you're talking.
Oh, yeah. You don't see any? Okay, seeing none. So John, I know you're here in the room and we'd love to hear if you have any comments.
Do not at this time.
Okay. Okay, so now, does anybody have any questions for the applicant? And it looks like Todd, you have a question.
Yeah, this is a question for Elitza. Just in general, I know you just drew building envelopes here, but what is the approximate square footage that you're trying to put into either two single-family houses or a duplex here?
So I've studied all possible options and we are quite limited here because of the zoning. We're in a residential zoning. With enclosed parking, the site coverage would be 1,250 square feet and the overall square footage per lot would be 1,850, and this is allowed. Without enclosed parking, the site coverage is 950, but the square footage is 1,850. In these studies, I have been pursuing the maximum square footage possible. Since, as I mentioned, initially when the clients got the lots, they were under the impression that this is a one lot. So it's an interesting process of challenges and changes on this path.
Kathy?
Did you consider asking for a variance to Proposition 300 to create one lot because of the wetlands and the creek on the lot? And I will tell you, we have created since Proposition 300, PNC has created lots of one lots from two lots because of the encroachments of Coronet Creek on various streets along Coronet Creek.
We were told that wasn't an option for us. So
Yeah.
we went back to the drawing board.
If I could just clarify, that may have come from me because I'm probably a little bit jaded because of 459 West Dakota. where we came through trying to shift the lot over under Citizens Petition 300 to improve the wetlands. And I just thought that was a non-starter based on my experience with the Burgers and 459. They really wanted to shift that over 25 feet, and it was just, no, we wanted a housing. And that did not sit well with my client, so they just pursued development by right. So if I'm wrong and that is an option, I guess, you know, Spencer and Stephanie could consider it, and if that door is open.
Kathy.
I believe it was along Galena, a block below, that we created that went from 2 lots to 1 lot because of the amount of land in the creek. And it was since Proposition 300. And I also believe maybe we did that. Maybe, I don't know, but we have, you know, we have done some, made some double lots or made some bigger than 5,000 or 7,000 square foot lots since Proposition 300. So my question to Ron would be, can they consider requesting 1 lot because of needing to build 2 structures, and then they could build a duplex without an interior lot line?
I mean, they'd have to comply with the public purpose that's associated with the Proposition 300. So I personally, I haven't seen a combination or
Well, I think,
lot consolidation since 300 that you're referring to, but I can do a little more research and see.
well,
what
I
see
think
of-
typically there's been some like actual public access to the reconfigured lot, so that like if there was a path along the creek or something like that, where we put like a bunch of things together, so there was a huge a large public benefit.
I mean, in the past, at least recently, most of the lot consolidations have occurred that aren't subject to 300 because they
were in the
extend across
pipeline
an
already.
existing building.
Right. There was an existing building.
So I'm not familiar with any that are not encroaching across a building. Maybe I can do a little more research. But
I believe it was Prior is the name of the family or the owner, lots along Galena, and I can't remember. And I thought they were, you know, it was all, we were only combining them because of wetlands and the creek, and I don't know that there were any trails involved. I just thought it might be easier than doing a PUD or something.
It absolutely would be, and I think that that's a much more efficient path, Kathy. If the planning commission will accept wetland preservation and riparian, you know, kind of keeping the River Park corridor enhanced. I think you all understand my hesitation at recommending that, given what happened across the street. So if that's changed, that's great. It would be a lot more efficient for sure.
And I also want to just clarify with either Ron or the applicant side, you cannot go the alley that was behind at least one of these lots, and maybe both of them, was vacated into the Boulder Village PUD a long time ago. So it's not like you can drive around behind them. You can drive to the houses just west of them and, you know, access from the back instead of at the top at the higher grade, but you can't legally drive to the back of these lots. I want to just clarify that for everybody to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So it is, everybody can speak for themselves on this commission, and it would come down to a vote. I personally would look more skeptically than Kathy at consolidating this lot into 1 lot. And that's not to say I wouldn't approve it, but it would have to have a substantial public benefit. So just, you know, I'm not going to call on everybody to give you their opinions on the plan you haven't presented, because we don't know what public benefits you would present. So let's talk about the plan that they have presented, unless.
Can I ask?
Yeah, I'd like to say something about that too.
Wait. Angela still has a question.
Okay, sorry.
Question for you, Ron. In your discussion of what they're saying is a public benefit, Are you concurring with that, or how do you feel about what that
Well,
constitutes as a
again,
public benefit?
At the work session level, staff is not making any recommendations.
Right, right.
But we think it's a valid position that they are trying to accomplish the protection of the riparian area by this consolidation of two residential units sharing the common interior lot line. That's a valid public benefit associated with the
Even though it's is it though a requirement of their development anyway?
No.
Well, they
Between
can
the
build
wetland
closer to
setback.
the creek, but not in the creek, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to avoid the riparian area by consolidating these to a single building or two single buildings sharing property line with shared access.
I think Angela's question is, are they doing anything they're required to do already?
Right.
Does the riparian setback force them back to that point? And those other two options are just really not on the table.
Right.
And that's a question for staff.
I'm not quite understanding.
I think the question is, where can the building footprint be the maximum building footprint
3 feet.
to, not between the two, but to
The creek.
the river or the creek or.
Where is the required
what's
riparian
25
setback?
foot setback.
All right,
And that's not shown here.
It is.
There is somewhere.
It's shown.
Somewhere.
So this is the 5 foot. This is the 5 foot limit here. I can zoom in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is the 5 foot requirement, minimal setback. And this here would be the 25 foot one.
So
And it's
there's
shown. This is the
corner.
duplex option, and this is the single family options.
Okay, sorry, I was not seeing that identified.
Yeah, I can switch to a bigger, to a nicer drawing if you would like.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
So show us the line that you're required to set back to.
Okay.
Which I'm confusing the 5 or the 25 line.
The 25 clips a few corners and she can,
Yeah.
she goes, yeah.
So
Okay.
this is the line, this blue line here, this is basically the minimum 5 foot setback.
Go to page 6. We're looking on Angela's computer. Sorry to jump in. Go to page 6 of your submittal, not of our packet, I think. And you can, somehow we're seeing it really well on a laptop that would help Eleni understand it.
Our background's blurred.
Or we'll pass you the
We'll
laptop.
pass it around.
Oops,
Can you
I
see
did something
what's-
bad.
okay, no, she just turned it.
What did I do wrong?
I don't know.
All I did was pick it up.
Do you want
It just
switch?
There was, we somehow have a drawing of just that one that we can enlarge.
I believe it's the one in the middle. Here we go. There. It's a light blue. Right there. Yeah.
So what is the
Anyway,
25-foot line? Are you were not required to set back the house that far?
There is a 25-foot setback. You know, they have to request an encroachment into that 25-foot setback, but that's through the wetland regulations, so that hasn't been applied for. That's something that they would have to apply.
So all these properties, all these designs encroach on the 25-foot line somewhat.
Yes.
Yes.
Somewhat.
They have to ask for a waiver. Administrative waiver.
And their point is that the duplex encroaches less. I'd
The
like to see
least,
that.
yeah.
I'd like to see that. in the
Yes.
graph. Can you show me the comparative pictures again? Thank you. So I can
Yes.
see that.
Yeah.
All right, now I see the line. Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you. Now I understand.
But even the duplex requires a variance,
A
right?
tiny bit.
No.
There's a
Mhm.
corner there.
Mhm.
I mean, it drops off here on the,
Yeah.
on the west side. It kind of disappears on the west side. Is that?
So none of these don't require any variance, but the duplex requires the least variance.
Correct.
Thank you.
And can you just clarify the light gray area versus the dark gray area obviously is
house.
the house, but the light gray, what is that area
This is
on the duplex?
hardscape. This would be a porch for the duplex. This is a porch with a lower porch, which overlooks the Cornet Creek. This is a meadow grate, that is hovering above the ground, so that more of this green area is preserved, and also has to deal with water mitigation and flooding. So
And
this,
show us the driveway and second parking place. I'm not sure everyone understands that.
for the duplex option,
Yes.
yeah, for the duplex option, the idea is that on lot C there is an enclosed parking area. This is the garage, and lot C would grant an easement to lot D to park their car on their driveway. However, in this option, the two cars can actually squeeze next to each other instead of blocking each other. So basically, I'm showing one parking at the driveway, and one inside, one is enclosed. So this way, we do not have to worry about parking any vehicles at the open area, and preserve more of the wetlands and open area.
Are there questions for the applicant? I mean, it's a work session, so.
Mm-hmm. And may I just say, and then in the other two options, when you were studying, parking and access. So as I was mentioning, in order for lot D to have an enclosed parking, we'll need to consider, or town will need to consider a bridge. And this is how close we actually get to Cornet Creek, and how much encroachment we get onto the wetland zone. And in this first version here, I studied an option without an enclosed parking, and perhaps a parking spot on some sort of like a metal grate in this area. We could barely put one. Otherwise, if we had to put another one, it would have to come here, and it would block access to lot C. So then these two lots won't be completely independent.
Mhm.
In this duplex, the two lots work from each other. They're mutually beneficial in terms of preserving open space, wetlands, access, driveway, and parking.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Other questions for the applicant? Kathy?
No, I just have comments when we.
Are we done
Oh,
with questions?
Just a couple, well, maybe for Ron, these are questions, but so the hardscape area on the duplex design
Mhm.
does that area need a waiver to be built in, or you can do hardscape
On the wetlands,
in the,
riparian zone?
if it's permeable.
Yeah,
You-
that would not be part of
okay.
administratively.
And then just my other question, if they went through the PUD process and that was approved as a duplex, is that permanent safeguards that it doesn't become a single family house at some point in the future?
That would be part of PUD.
I mean,
Yeah,
It would identify it as two separate units.
I mean,
Shared common.
somebody couldn't have a common doorway and kind of say it's a duplex, but use it as a single family.
To keep the lot line, it's two separate ownerships, right?
Yes.
There has to be a firewall between the two along the lot line, and you wouldn't have it
Yeah,
necessarily.
now we did encounter this problem. We have encountered this problem with a building on, I think it was on Columbia. There was a duplex that they wanted to combine, and they did in fact combine it.
I mean.
So
th-
it's
th-
not
they
a
ca-
precedent.
They came back and asked,
Set.
I mean, they could come back and ask
Sure,
for,
but they can't
I-
just do it casually, yeah.
okay.
I mean, it's not a precedent we want to set, honestly, that we allow that, because there are plenty of firewalls in this town. It's not an end run around 300. So other comments from, so what would be helpful to you applicants?
I want to give comments.
Kathy would like to comment. Why don't we let Kathy comment? We'll all comment.
I like this last one. I would like to see it happen, whether it's simpler through a variance to Proposition 300, or whether it's simplest as a PUD. It would be great. I realize this is just a study showing the biggest possible footprints. And I like the fact that you've pushed it back as close as you probably can to the rock wall and the lot line for Boulder Village. And it looks like a Boulder Village encroachment, of course, on the back, on the south side. But it would be great in your final studies and when it comes back to us for approval to have even less building space in the wetland setback. So you're asking for less of a variance. And when you say porch, that's more of an intrusion to me than a deck or a patio with a permeable surface for those outdoor spaces. I understand the desire for those and I support that, but I would support uncovered ones that are permeable.
Angela?
Yeah, along those lines, it seems like what these studies have, or what they're showing me is that you can't get max this out. I don't have any problem with a duplex. I've lived in duplexes and they work really well. Common wall, very common, but I don't see any reason to encroach on the wetlands. We already had one house destroyed here. So I think the more prudent approach would be to build or to design within the constraints that you have. Because I think it can be done. You just can't get max. And I think Hark would probably tell you that too. In terms of driveways, that's going to be a challenge. Wetlands should be, if this is in a delineated wetland, it needs to be permeable or you basically destroy the wetland. So if you pave it, you've just created what the wetland designation under section
It's
404.
riparian. I think that's riparian, not wetland. It's 20 feet above the water level.
Okay, so my mistake then. If it is riparian, in order to be effective in a flood zone, not a floodway, but a flood zone, it needs to remain permeable. So there are many different ways to do that with hardscape. And I would say no paving because you are exacerbating that situation.
Or a permeable treatment or something.
Exactly. Several ways to get to that, but I think, thank you for showing us various different ways to do this, but my feeling is it's too much, but you could still get 2 units there.
You just shrink them a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not even a big shrink.
No.
Other comments?
I think I would agree with both of them, just that I think I don't have a problem with having a duplex. But I think if we're doing that, I really want to see it as close to that back line as possible, including, I mean, as Kathy said, I think, something with a deck or whatever that without a roof makes a big difference to me. But the less even hardscape or driveway there is that's in that 25-foot area or whatever, the more I would like it.
I'm sorry, if possible too, you're so small on my screen, I can barely see name tags. If you could just mention your name when you're speaking, I know most of you, but.
That was Charles.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry.
Okay, Todd, do you have any views here?
I don't have anything to add. I agree with everything that's been said. It's the most elegant solution to a very complex situation, and we don't need it maxed out.
I agree. You took the words out of my mouth. I think it's the best solution. I think it was considerate and thoughtful. And I think it's a great idea. But I do agree with some of the concerns.
So it's wonderful when all my commissioners say everything and I don't have to say anything. Great. Do you have any other questions, applicants, while we're still here?
Just, I think the PUD path is going to be a lot more certain to me, given the, public benefit test of Citizens Petition 300. So I just want to make sure that if we do bring a PUD forward, again, I know this work sessions are non-binding and all that stuff, that I want to make sure that to get to this plan that everyone seems to want, that you'll accept what we put forward in the presentation, that we're creating a better plan to protect wetlands, and therefore that will justify the PUD. I want to make sure that I'm hearing that correctly.
I think what you heard is that we don't have a problem with the idea of a duplex with a common wall. I think you heard pretty clearly that we have a problem with encroaching in the blue line.
Yeah,
And
I heard
especially
that.
encroaching with hard scale, non-permeable surfaces, whether they're built or a porch.
Okay,
Or
let me
drive.
rephrase the question. Is the planning commission going to accept preservation of wetlands as the public benefit on a PUD if we submit it in a non-binding sort of green light way?
I think what you heard is what I said before, that we value preservation of wetlands. And as a result, we would accept a duplex. But because we value preservation of wetlands, we do not want this building to encroach into
I heard
the.
that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I got all the comments on it. I was just trying
I
to
just
get.
want to be really clear.
No, absolutely. I got notes down and on it. So, okay.
And
That's
we're
great.
not
Thank you very much for
committing
the
future
clarification.
P and Z to accepting your proposal.
That's correct. This is just our view tonight.
Yep, understood.
Thank
Okay.
you. All right.
Yeah, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I want to say also,
ahead,
thank you so
Susan.
much. This felt really collaborative. I felt really heard. I think you really got the idea that we're really trying to come up with a plan that's best. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is my first attendance in a meeting like this, and I was very pleased with how we were received. So thank you.
You're welcome, and we look forward to working with you in the future. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good
All
night.
right. Our next,
Good night.
we next have some public hearing items. Short break.
Yeah.
I think we need a short break and then I think we need to consider
Oh,
what
Kevin's
order
here.
we're doing things in. And while I always want to do long range planning, like land use code amendments first, tonight we might be doing those last because we have people present that shouldn't
right.
stay out any later. than
Is
they
it,
are.
Kevin, may we take our public hearing items out of order to facilitate out of order because the applicant has waited a long time
TSRC has been here, Mark has been here for an hour at least.
with his
waiting
child,
list.
who
I'd have
makes
to
me
look
feel
at how
bad.
you, what timing was on the agenda.
They were at the end. Mark was at the end.
There's no.
time.
There's no time.
No.
Objective time.
Okay, great. We're going to rearrange. I'm sorry, John, we can go go take a break.
Well, and Kevin as well.
And Kevin, how long is your item?
I would anticipate the executive session is 5 to 10 minutes.
Great, let's do it before we do the public hearing items. I'm sorry, Mark. This way we can let Kevin go. We can just let Kevin go. So when we come back, we'll be in executive session. Is that all right?
Oh, okay.
Kevin, what do I need to recite?
There's a motion to get into executive session.
Okay,
So, can you hear me? Piper?
Yes.
We're back on the record. So you need to take a motion for the language that's on your agenda. Do you have that?
I don't have that
language?
language. Okay. I don't think I have that language. Maybe it's this thing. No, it's some food.
Not there. Not there. It's the revised agenda language that came out.
Does it just
As
say?
the executive session right at the end.
Oh, yeah. I have
Yeah,
it.
there it is.
Say. So I just say I'm on a motion for a conference, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so
Did I just
Have-
move it myself?
Good.
Great.
Yeah, and then you have to vote on it, 3/5,
Okay.
have to approve it.
Right.
And then after the approval, we go in.
All right.
I don't know if we can improve that, you know.
Yeah, well, then you won't hear what's happening. All right, but this way we can at least get Kevin out of here.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sorry, it won't, it's not helpful to Mark. But then we'll take you next, Mark. and we'll- It's just because he's so short and you're gonna be a while.
No, she's not gonna join us. today.
Okay, so there's no need to.
I don't think there's any breakout.
Okay.
Everyone's here in person, right?
Yep.
Todd, you'll have a comment. Sorry.
Although I'm a co-defendant.
So when we get Angela back, we'll go into executive session. Hmm. Do we need to depart
So you need to do
after
a
the motion?
motion,
Mhm.
second, get it approved, and then we'll go in, and then we'll do
Okay.
another script in there.
And Mark and his daughter will just move in the green room since they've been sitting here for an hour.
Everybody goes in the break.
Oh,
room.
we all go.
You go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So Mark and his daughter will enjoy some refreshments courtesy of
I don't
town
know that we
council.
have anything
Elena,
exciting.
let me know when we're back from break, please, and I'll.
It's
restart
just
the
when
recording.
Angela sits down.
Thanks.
Go for it. Okay, so I move for an executive session for a conference with the town attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions under CRS section 24-6-4024B and section 4.6 of the Telluride Home Rule Charter and ordinance 1283, series of 2008. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor? Please vote. Yes. That was unanimous. All right, we are now going to go into executive session. Sorry, I thought you were.
I'm sorry, now we are.
All right. The time is now 8:22 PM and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were
Kevin Geiger, town attorney.
um,
Dan Enright, town council.
Ron Quarles, Planning and Building Director.
Bishay Benton, P and Z member.
Charles Dalton, P and Z member.
Alani Constantine, P and Z Chair.
Kathy Green, P and Z member.
Angela Dye, P and Z member.
And Mr. Taylor from the planning department.
For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none. The next agenda item is. So the next agenda item is,
Madam Chair, I move we go back into regular session.
thank you. I second that motion. All in favor?
Unanimous.
All right, we are now back in regular session and the executive session is concluded. So our next item, we've tried to move up the number 2 on our public hearing items, and we are now at the TSRC independent calculation of affordable housing. This is a request for independent calculation of affordable housing mitigation per section 3-720C2 of the Land Use Code. Legal description, units 1, 2, and 3 of the Depot condominiums located on Lot 2, the Depot PUD Plan subdivision, address 300 South Townsend Avenue, Zone District Accommodations 2, owner Telluride Science Research Center, applicant Mark Kozak, staff member Ron Quarles. Ron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me share the screen.
You need to turn your video on. There you go.
So this is a request from TSRC, Telluride Science and Research Center, for your consideration of an independent housing mitigation calculation for the determination of the affordable housing mitigation. Just a little bit of history. Depot Building, it is a local landmark. Pre-1990s, it was a building that was really being neglected and was partially abandoned. In the early 1990s, there was some restoration and use of the building. 2007, UPR was granted for AHA School of Arts to operate its educational facility at the depot. And then in 2017, 10 years later, UPR was granted by the Planning and Zoning Commission for the Telluride Science and Research Center to operate at the depot. HARC approved a minor scale application. CA was issued and TSRC purchased the building. Then in 2020, a temporary use permit was approved for the medical center between the use of AHA and TSRC. So we did have a consideration of zoning incentives to waive the parking requirements and the affordable housing mitigation back in 2019. However, that expired. New request was made in 2021. Since that time, however, TSRC has has scaled back on what it's planning to do as far as some of the conversion of office space. And so the TSRC is in front of you now asking for parking payment in lieu and also this independent calculation. Parking payment in lieu will follow your action on this request. Sorry, I'm trying to move this. So affordable housing mitigation, it's required for any new development or a change of use that generates additional employees. Originally, when you were considering this, back in, well, actually last year, the applicant had anticipated 600 square feet of addition or additional office space. That was scaled back to 345 square feet when it went in front of the Telluride Housing Authority for their review and recommendation of this application. And now it's finally down to 185 square feet, which is the addition at the rear of the building. So for commercial and public uses, the employment generation that we utilize in land use code is 4.5 employees per 1,000 square feet of net floor area. That would generate for any typical development for that square footage, 31 employees for the Telluride Science Research Center. However, the independent calculation, the applicant has provided data that shows that they are anticipating only 5.4 employees total. Independent calculation for the 6,994 square feet of total floor area works out to 0.78 per 1,000 square feet per net floor area. And that compares to 4.5. And that's the application that you're considering. So we applied 185 square feet. This is under the old or the current formula based on the land use code. You end up with 133 square feet of affordable housing mitigation that's required. Because it is less than 400 square feet, the applicants can pay payment in lieu of $502, which would equal $66,766. So if we apply the independent calculation that has been submitted for your review, the 0.78 per 1,000 square feet equals 23 square feet. Multiplied by 502, that works out to $11,590. Again, the application that's in front of you is to allow for the 0.78 employees per 1,000 square feet as opposed to the required, the otherwise requirement of 4.5 employees per 1,000 square feet. Rather than read through all the conditions, we did include in the staff memo the conditions of approval. There were 2 changes that were made. This did go to the Telluride Housing Authority for their review and recommendation. Under the condition concerning the independent payroll audit, the original condition was that it be performed 2 years following the project's occupancy. THA added a provision that would require the audit 5 years after the first audit. And then the final condition was modified or was added by THA, and that is that the town shall have or shall enjoy a first right of refusal for the sale of the property should that occur in the future. And part of the reason that condition was put into the or was their recommendation was based on the fact that with the zoning incentives that were approved last year, there was a commitment to deed restrict that for no residential use in the future, and that it would be used for public uses. With that, that concludes my presentation. Be glad to answer any questions. Mark is here to further elaborate.
Does anybody have any questions for Ron? I have one question for you, Ron. What protection does the building enjoy as being a designated local landmark? What status, what does that do for it? Donna, if you would like to comment?
So a local landmark is our highest designation of historic structure in town. So it cannot be demolished, it cannot be significantly altered. A small addition was approved for the rear of the structure where the current conservatory is. It's basically replacing that. But no other significant additions or alterations would likely be approved to that.
Is that exterior or interior as well?
Exterior.
So you could do whatever you want to the interior.
I mean,
Any questions for John? Go ahead, John.
it could be, you know, I mean, it's not now, but in the future, there's nothing stopping it from becoming a big residence
Yes.
or
With this, with the condition that's been applied. I believe.
Number 6.
First right of refusal.
That's the
Well,
only thing that, so the town could buy
I
it.
mean, the old condition was it could not be. The only way to, I mean, not trying to say that that's your intent ever, hopefully it's not, but the town would have to buy the property to prevent that if, for whatever reason.
Otherwise, no, there is
Okay.
protection.
Otherwise, the only protections are to the exterior of the building, as John had described.
Well, I mean, as far as your question, the use of the building, there is no protection otherwise, other than the right of refusal for the town. In other words, it could be a residential use if the right of, if the town decides not to purchase.
Other questions for Ron? No? All right, Mark, would you like to
Sure.
make a presentation?
Oh, so my name is Mark Kozak, the executive director at Telluride Science. One of the things, just so you know, is we don't have any plans on, we're currently at 4.4 employees and we've been operating out of the depot, and I just threw an extra employee in there in case we were ever to grow a little bit. But at this time, there's no plans to do that, but I thought conservatively, that's what we should do. You know, a couple things I just want to say about this is that, you know, we're not a wealthy organization. We've had to claw our way to raise the funds to purchase the building and to renovate it so that it will be a useful community asset. And our intention is always to keep it as a community asset. We don't have plans on selling it. And also, you know, if we had not purchased the depot, they would be condos, high-end condos right now. There were 2 developers waiting to purchase. As the executive director, it is my duty to protect the financial viability of the organization. And for this reason, I'm uncomfortable with the right of first refusal clause as part of the employee generation recalculation approval. It is well recognized that this type of right can result in the property failing to sell. And we're not in the financial position to take this risk, particularly when there could possibly be only one suitable buyer for the property. And we are also, if it ever came to that, we would also be very concerned about who's purchasing. And it would be our intention to really go to the town and the nonprofit community first, you know, the same way that AHA did. Now, we've also always demonstrated that we have been a great community partner, from releasing the agreement to lease on the Youth Link lot that's now becoming affordable housing, to rescuing the depot and our commitment to restore it, this National Historic Landmark building, to making the depot available to the medical center when they asked for it to address the community's pandemic response. We donated $21,000 to upgrade the elementary school's Wi-Fi. We provide local internships every year. We had 10 local kids this summer. We annually contribute 12 million in total economic impact every year. And we will continue to provide educational outreach to the community through our public talks. And so I think that we've clearly demonstrated that we are a thoughtful and committed community partner. I would hope that maybe you'd please consider letting the recalculation go through without the right of first refusal contingency, because the recalculation does reflect our reality. It is fair, and it was provided to other nonprofits and for-profit entities in this town without that contingency. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Mark? No? Is there any public comment on this matter?
There's no public in the meeting.
No, we all went home. We tired them
We
out.
wore them down.
We tired them out. All right. Let's turn to board discussion. Todd?
Well, as a board member of another nonprofit who has had to provide a $1.6 million letter of credit to the town to make sure that that structure gets used for public benefit in perpetuity. Good intentions are great, but this is a cheap and easy way for your organization to escape, if you will, and I'm in favor of proceeding as is.
Retaining the right of first refusal.
Retaining the.
But you would grant them the, you would approve the motion as
I would
written.
approve the
Conditions?
the calculation
Okay,
at 0.78.
with the right of first
The
refusal.
right of first refusal.
Other comments?
Mine's basically the same, that I think that the right of first refusal is important. It doesn't mean that the town would buy it at a below market price. We would pretty much have to match an appraisal or any other offer. So
But that could be the right of first offer.
Usually-
Versus the right of first refusal. It's the problem with the mechanics of the right of first.
Usually the right of first refusal works that the seller has to present the person with the right of first refusal another offer that was actually made.
Right,
And then the person with the right of first refusal gets to match that offer.
right. And often timing of those things have historically messed up a lot of sales. So like, we would consider a right of first offer.
well,
Right, but that doesn't set the market. I mean, the reason the right of first refusal is usually valuable to the person who has it is that it enables them to match something that you actually got.
Right, but you could, as the right of first offer, come up with even a lower price to offer.
This isn't a debate.
yeah.
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 Yeah, this is board deliberation.
But
We will probably pass the recalculation if we're held to that. Just so you know.
Okay.
and what consequence would that have?
They'd pay 66. Yeah.
55,000 more dollars.
Okay. Then we get more money for
Yeah,
useful
well,
things.
well, the other thing too is like, just so you know, as a nonprofit, we have to get donations to do everything. And, you know, by the time this ends, we're gonna pay about $380,000 to the town in fees and taxes. Which seems to me totally wrong, but
We're not here to adjust your building permit fees or other
I'm not even
fees or
talking about
taxes.
that. I'm talking about, okay.
So
Angela?
I have a question about what happens in the scenario that Mark was just describing. Or as we have, as some have indicated that we go with the motion before us. What happens to the lack of a deed restriction?
It's not, doesn't exist. There's no deed restriction.
So we can't require that. That was a condition of our original approval, wasn't it?
Yes, it
A
was.
previous approval that
Right.
has expired, so.
That approval allowed them to do various things conditioned on the deed restriction, which at that time they were willing to accept. Now they have a different way to get the things they want, which are to have less affordable housing and to less parking space. And they've decided those are all the things they want. And they think that they can.
But what do we get? I mean, I'm asking in deliberation here.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Charles.
I think I have the same question. I guess if the recommendation as is does not go forward or they don't accept it, does that mean it goes back to,
No, that's expired.
that's expired?
That's off. It's done. Gone.
Okay.
Poof.
So
I mean,
the,
The zoning incentives are still
Wait.
available.
If-
If
I
they
can
choose.
tell
to-
you why, the only reason we're not, everything that we're doing here is only financial, okay? And the reason that we're not pursuing the deed restriction. And just so you know, we don't have any intention on selling it or doing anything, flipping it or anything like that. The reason that we're not doing it has to do with the elevation in actually lodging prices. What we'd like to do, the problem is that when we put the deed restriction on the building, it significantly lowers the value of the building. We would like to use the value of the building to purchase lodging so that we can have affordable lodging moving forward. That's the only reason that we're not pursuing the deed restriction. It doesn't have anything to do with we want to make a lot of money or anything like that. It's just that we can leverage the value of the building to ensure that we can last and house scientists and use it for, hockey teams or whatever in the fall and winter.
Well, we hope you do that too, but I mean, there is a risk that just as AHA wanted to buy a different building and sold this one, you will do the same. And at that point, we would like to see the building, we would very much like to see the building continue into public use
we
and
will.
not become a residence.
We'll
And it would
come
be
to-
nice
we'll
residence.
Come to you early.
I
Yeah,
don't,
but you're not required to.
I don't think we need to make this harder than it is. I feel strongly that I support the staff memo and it's their choice if they want to spend approximately $55,000 more to not have the number 6, the right of first refusal. And I would just say, if you think about Lawson Hill, where those are deed restricted employee units, but when one of them has to sell, the county gets the right of first refusal. And most of the time, the county has been able to buy the unit and then resell it to a qualified person. There were times when the county did not have the money, and I think one unit has been lost. I think one unit in town that had a deed restriction was lost. Similarly, it's just a very rare thing. So I think we just do this, it's their choice, and we don't have to go over and over this because I feel strongly we want the right of first refusal. And if they don't want that, then they can buy their way out of it.
So we would come to you as one of the first entities to buy it. But the problem is, like, if the town messes it up and decides not to do it, and we lose, say, the only buyer that's suitable that might protect the building, then everyone loses. That's the issue. It's very easy to mess a right of first refusal purchase up. That's what we've been told. There's a long documented history of this in real estate transactions. This is actually, I'm saying this in the best interest of all of us.
We also have a duty to represent your,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
interests, so.
Well, I guess I would just say I support what's here. And if you want to come back with a different proposal and run it through our legal, as well as our planning staff is here, but our legal staff has left, and come back with a right of first offer, that's different. But tonight, what I'm prepared to do is 1 through 6. And I don't think we have to go on and on about
Well, let's
this.
see how other people feel. Does anybody feel differently than Kathy and would like to discuss it? Oh, great. Hi, Ellen. All
I
right,
like the idea of coming back with new verbiage, if that's something that they're willing, if that's
Yeah,
what you want
so-
to do,
So we pass something tonight and they come back and amend it.
they don't have to accept this deal.
You're right.
Yeah.
But if there's a different proposal, first offer or something for something else. to
Propose something
accept,
else.
Just to point out, it does have to go back to THA before it comes back to you.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, we're trying to start the renovation on Monday, so we'll probably just be stuck with.
All right, do you have a motion? Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah. I move to recommend approval of the independent calculation per land use code 3-720.C.2 for the Telluride Science Research Center at 300 Townsend associated with the certificate of appropriateness issued on February 10th, 2020, and with the following findings set forth in the staff report of record dated October 17th, 2022, with the following conditions, 1 through 6, as in the staff report. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on October 27th, 2022, and with such notice of the hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Second, Angela seconds, all in favor? That's unanimous. All right, we will proceed to our next item, which is also TSRC. Telluride Science Research Center, payment in lieu of parking. Request for a payment in lieu of one parking space as an activity permitted on review per section 6-114 of the Land Use Code. Legal description. Units 1, 2, and 3 of the Depot condominiums located on Lot 2, the Depot PUD Plan subdivision. Address 300 South Townsend Avenue, Zone District Accommodations 2, owner sub Telluride Science Research Center, applicant Mark Kozak, staff member Ron.
Thank you. So this is the second request from TSRC. Again, 185 square feet is the proposal for the addition to the building, the rear. Parking requirement per our code is 1 space per 1,000 square feet for the low intensity use, which that is the use that is considered under our land use code under the accommodations 2 zoning. In 2017, the UPR was approved for this use and it limited it to 5 parking spaces. Specifically 4 on-site spaces and 1 off-site parking space per an easement that was granted previous to this action. So the addition of 185 square feet requires 1 additional parking spaces for a total of 6 parking spaces. Section 6-114 of the Land Use Code allows for a payment in lieu of providing a parking space. And it's considered an activity permitted on review, considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Criteria for granting a payment in lieu. Required parking cannot be located on site due to site-specific physical constraints or site design requirements. Staff addressed all of these criteria in the staff memo as well as the applicant. Historic significance of the existing building or other site features would be adversely affected to meet the parking requirement on site, or the property is located in close proximity to permanent public parking or public transportation routes, or the public health, safety, or welfare would be adversely affected by locating the required parking on the property. If the application is approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, there would be an agreement for $38,750 be paid to the town of Telluride for the parking space, or the other otherwise would be a parking space. And there's also an annual operation and maintenance that's charged for at least or for 15 years. Currently, it's $1,478.88, but that is subject to revisions based on the CPI, Consumer Price Index. So that would be a total of $40,288 for the first year. Conditions in the staff memo, the applicant must record a perpetual commitment by TSRC as the current owner and any subsequent owner to utilize the off-site parking space at the River Club per grant of easement and parking recorded in 1994 as reception 289793. The part or the commitment may be revoked or canceled only upon providing alternative parking acceptable to town staff. The reason we put that in there as a condition, there is an available parking space per the easement recorded in 1994. However, they have to elect to use that. And so this is a requirement that parking space be used, that it's not just available, but it's actually parking that they are utilizing. Currently, that has not been something that they've elected to use, but that would be a condition. That would be a condition of approval. The second condition is an agreement to pay the fee at the established rates. The agreement would be recorded prior to the issuance of the building permit. And that concludes staff's presentation, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So just to clarify, the space at the River Club is the 5th space,
That's
and
correct.
they want to pay for the 6th space.
That's
Right.
correct.
Okay,
That's why I understood it.
right, okay. And when they don't use it, they don't, I assume there's some requirement that they pay the River Club for using it?
Yeah, there is.
So
a
they have
homeowner-
chosen not to use it, not to pay for it. Okay. Any other questions for Ron? No? All right, Mark, would you like to say anything?
The 185 square feet does trigger 0.18 of a space. I don't know if you guys are willing to waive it at all, but. No, okay,
That's your presentation?
that's it.
But all right, board discussion.
Very compelling.
There's no public still, right, Piper? No public comment. Board discussion? Want to discuss this?
I support it as staff has proposed it. It's gonna be impossible to put more parking on the lot with the historic structure and the replication of the deck that was always around it. You know, River Club doesn't really want us to use when we were there at AHA, they didn't really want us to use it. So I would like to see it used just for that reason alone.
I mean, we have to, like,
Yeah.
in the rules of the easement.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just have it, you have to use it, so
Yeah, so.
we have to do that.
All right. Do I have?
And it
a-
is an interior parking space, so on a day like today.
It'd be nice.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. okay.
I'd like
All
to
right.
make a motion.
Would you?
Yes.
Go ahead, Angela.
Okay. I move to approve this request for payment in lieu of one parking space pursuant to LUC section 6-114 for the property located at 300 South Townsend with the findings and conditions set forth in the staff report of record dated October 19th, 2022, with one finding and 2 conditions. This as written. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on October 27th, 2022, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Would somebody like to second Angela's motion?
Todd seconds.
Thank you, Todd. Is there any discussion? No? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Ron. All right, and finally, our last item, and thank you, John, for being so incredibly patient.
Yeah. Sorry. we kept you-
As we tried to be efficient. Land use code amendments, review and recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to Town Council regarding an amendment to the Town of Telluride Land Use Code at Article 5, Division 1, Development Review Procedures, Article 6, Division 3, Planned Unit Development, Article 6, Division 4, Subdivision, Article 7, Division 1, Historic Preservation Overlay District, Article 7, Division 2, Alteration, Addition, and Erection, and Article 9, Division 2, Historic and Architectural Review Commission. Staff member is Ron and Jana.
Thank you, Chair. So this land use code amendment you've seen before, John briefed you on it last meeting. This is the ordinance that John worked on and presented to HARC for their recommendation. HARC voted unanimously to recommend approval of the ordinance land use code amendment as written, with no changes. There are 2 purposes for the land use code amendment: to reduce the number of review and recommendation actions by HARC to P and Z and by Hart Chair, P and Z Chair. And number two, even though it says number one, improve the flow of applications by adjusting Hart application types. I'm going to try to briefly go through some of the changes. One change is the noticing by letters that would be required for minor scale applications. Hart will continue to review and recommend land use code text amendments that affect that are located within the Telluride Historic Landmark District or within the Hillside Treatment Zone. Zoning map amendments will also require review and recommendation from Hart. Hart will review large-scale PUDs only.
They may.
Only at the discretion of the historic preservation director. In other words, they not all large-scale PUDs would require review by Hart. And it would only be those large-scale PUDs that are located within the THLD or that affect massive scale, but it is at the discretion of the historic preservation director. Hart and the Hart Chair will no longer review and recommend minor subdivisions, preliminary plats for large-scale subdivisions, preliminary plats for small-scale subdivisions, and small-scale PUDs. The application types will be more directly tied to or aligned with projects that are inside the THLD or outside THLD. Inside the THLD, no changes would occur for large-scale residential and commercial projects. They would continue to be reviewed as large-scale. Demolitions of THAS rated, two rated. I needed to proofread this. Rated structures. Small scale reviews for extensions, designation, or challenges for designations of the historic structures, or for demolitions of non-rated structures or alterations to interiors. Again, the emphasis on this land use code amendment is to emphasize the THLD as the primary concern of the Historic and Architectural Review Board Commission. Inside the THLD, modifications to floor area threshold would be modified for new construction and additions. Some of the large scale projects would become small scale, and you've seen this before. Some of the small scale would become minor scale, some of the minor scale would be insubstantial. Outside the historic landmark district, large scale activities will be limited to demolitions of THAS rated primary structures and larger commercial projects. Small scale activities would be new construction additions that are not the larger commercial, which is generally 5,000 square feet. Extensions of projects that have been reviewed through HARC, reviews and recommendations, and that's only for the land use code amendments or the rezonings that apply. Challenges to the designation of structures, relocations of secondary structures, or the repositioning of primary rated structures, or the demolition of non-rated THAS structures. Also, again, outside the THLD, modifications of floor area thresholds were adjusted for new construction and additions. Again, large scale would become small scale for some of the projects, and small scale, minor scale to insubstantial. This would reduce the number of applications that would actually go in front of the full HARC Commission for review, and would increase administrative reviews by staff and HARC chair considerations. And with that, unless John has anything to add or clarify or correct,
I just wanted to make sure that you were able to see the actual draft ordinance. I think there was a miscommunication when the packet was initially posted, but the final proposed draft ordinance should have been in your packet. Reviewed. So happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Ron or John? We reviewed this pretty carefully last time.
Yeah, I listened
Yeah.
to council
All right.
discussion too.
So we've had 2 work sessions with council, we've had a work session with Hark and a work session with P and Z, and we've had a review and recommendation by Hark. So
All right.
tonight we'll hope to get a review and recommendation from P and Z, and then we'll have 2 readings before council before it all
Oh,
gets
yeah,
wrapped up with a bow.
All right.
So maybe by
Next
next
year.
year.
Hopefully by the end of the year.
Oh, great.
I hope.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion? Come on, somebody.
I
who
think
doesn't-
I have all the words in front of me. I move to recommend to town council approval of amendments to the land use code, Article 5, Division 1, development review procedures, Article 6, Division 3, plan unit development, Article 6, Division 4, subdivision, Article 7, Division 1, historic preservation overlay district, Article 7, Division 2, alteration, addition and erection, and Article 9, Division 2, Historic and Architectural Review Commission.
And then this motion. is
Okay,
based-
this motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on October 27th, 2022, yeah.
Still
With notice-
22.
Yeah, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Would somebody like to second?
Second.
Oh,
Thank
okay,
you.
well, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah,
Charles
go
seconds.
for
All right. Is there any discussion? No. Would anybody like to vote? Yes.
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 All right.
Passed unanimously. Is there anything else anybody would like to discuss or needs to talk about?
I will not be at next November meeting and can't be on remote either,
Okay.
so just in case other people happen to be out as it's getting close.
Well, this is one reason why we went so much at this meeting, because we're getting close to the holidays and sure that will apply to others.
I will be on Zoom for the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll be here for December.
Awesome. Anybody else going to be anywhere that they know?
I will be here.
So far, the next meeting has, talking about the vision plan, hopefully making a recommendation. And then maybe we'll present some draft 2023 meeting dates.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you will circulate the revised vision plan that they send
As soon as they send it.
comments. Perfect.
So you don't have a schedule yet for meetings in 23?
I mean, I have a
Yeah.
draft calendar, but
Okay,
Lane.
it's generally the last
Thursday?
Thursday of
Do you want to talk about?
so it's
December?
still,
It's still not-
unless it falls on a holiday.
You were.
So
and then November.
November and December get altered, obvious.
Right.
So, and
Okay,
Kathy,
same
you-
drill.
Same as this, generally the same schedule as
Where
this year.
whether I have access
What
to
day
Zoom.
is it?
16th or something like that.
Yeah, I leave on that week.
They're pretty good.
I didn't really eat it earlier.
I might be on Zoom, but I have to see. Okay, it is 9:03 and I
Wow.
move to adjourn this meeting by unanimous consent.
Okay.
Awesome. Hey, we did it.
We haven't been this late
Five
forever.
thirty.